Let's may as well start this again.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Let's talk about this right here, all right? For those that don't know, this is Governor Walz. He is currently the governor of Minnesota, and he is running alongside Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is currently our vice president. She is running to be president of the United States, and if she wins, this will be your vice president. Now, I know for a fact, a lot of people would agree with that statement. A lot of people seem to think that, yes, free speech does not cover hate speech. Again, I understand where that logic comes from. As someone who used to be a Democrat, I used to have a lot of the same beliefs as you. So I understand there is an emotional aspect to that. You want to feel like you're doing something. You want to feel like you are protecting people. I get it. I understand. It is not well reasoned, and here's why. What do you mean by hate speech? Like specifically, it implies by saying this statement that there is a standard of hate speech. So what is it? Can you show me a list where that would, like, what? Who gets to establish what hate speech is? Depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer, which means that hate speech is subjective. It changes from person to person, and that should alarm you. See, the beauty of the first is it gives us the power to choose. I have the power to choose if I choose to be offended by something that someone said. Oh, you said something racist to me? You said the N-word? Oh, okay, well, that's nice. Even if someone threatened me, thank goodness for the Second Amendment, but I would prefer if that person said whatever they wanted to be versus having a society where people didn't have the ability to say anything depending on what the government...
And a society where people didn't say what they think.
Thinks is acceptable. I would even go as far as to say that there is something beneficial about being exposed to so-called hate speech because it grows your mental resilience. Now imagine for a second if every single person in the United States had the mental fortitude to not feel oppressed by hateful rhetoric. The government would lose its power. They couldn't depend on you to support them with your vote if you chose to ignore it or turn the other cheek. Well, there's a grand idea. But they need you, so they want you to feel as though you are literally under attack by hearing so-called hate speech. So they need to continue that narrative, so you'll vote for them. Now, let's talk about the other thing that he mentioned about misinformation. This is another funny word. I could be wrong, but didn't we...
Misinformation is basically like redirecting people from your truth, the true truth, to actual fucking reality. How dare you? How very dare you? How dare you question the narrative? Because the narrative is the truth. The true truth.
We go through a pandemic. COVID came out and everyone started questioning the origins of it and questioning the legitimacy of the vaccine. And wasn't the media labeling these people as right-wing conservative conspiracy theorists who are spreading misinformation? And then come to find out it actually was true that wearing a mask didn't slow the spread and the vaccine actually didn't prevent you from getting the virus. And oh, yes, that's right. The virus actually did originate from a lab, but this was all misinformation, right? It's all xenophobic misinformation by right-wingers. Yes, so when you say misinformation, I have to wonder, are you alluding to the truth? Is that what you mean by misinformation? You think that the truth should be suppressed? So again, who does this benefit? It benefits the government, because at minimum, if you were to look at this at a microscopic level, it's kind of insulting that the government is implying that you're too stupid to ask the right questions. I mean, I do agree, we do have a lot of dumb people in this world, I get it. But again, I think in order for you to learn how to think critically, you have to have have that ability to do so in the first place. And you can't properly think critically and reason through your thoughts if the government is just feeding you information and telling you what you have to believe. That's not learning. You're not learning anything. You're just repeating the narrative. And then calling people conspiracy theorists because they are presenting to you an alternative viewpoint that you can't fathom. And so now it's just misinformation. No, it's not misinformation. By the way, guys, because I know for a fact someone is gonna come in the comments.
Maybe that's it. It's misinformation. They don't want you to know lady consciousness. Heck no, no misinformation. Come now.
Section and tell me, oh, there's a full clip, you're taking it out of context. All right, so I watched the entire segment and he was referring to the ballot boxes. So his argument is that there's no guarantee to free speech in the context of lying about the voting integrity. And my argument still stands, okay? Free speech also covers lying, all right? Covered under the First Amendment when we all know that the government doesn't have the best track record for telling the truth. Read in between the lines here. He is saying the quiet part out loud. So that's all I wanted to say. Let's get on with the video. So now you have to ask yourself, okay, why is this guy saying this about the First Amendment, misinformation and free speech? Why? What's the point of there is something else going on in the background that I'm sure a lot of my viewers have already caught on to. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you watch the news, you've sort of seen this pattern, but there is an effort to push for more gun policy, or they say common sense gun policy, okay? And again, I understand this position because
Blue
you want
skies
to feel
over
like
Denmark.
you're doing something to help. You don't like seeing people get hurt. And if you have these school shootings or these random drive-bys, gang violence and stuff like that, you want to feel like you're actually doing something. You're actually making a change. I get the logic here. But if you think about it, it's very illogical to support something like this, and here's why. I want you to consider this, all right? When someone goes to commit a mass shooting, say a school shooting, are they following proper gun safety? The answer is no. If someone commits a school shooting, are they following the law? The answer is no. So really, there would be no point to these laws, you could argue. So who does it actually benefit? We know who it's targeting, the average person that just wants to protect their family from criminals, to which, by the way, there are many, especially with this wide open border we have. But who gets the benefit from this? Let's think about this for a second. If the government is saying that only certain people can own guns, or more specifically, they're honestly, let me just say this, because a lot of people are going to come in the comments and say, they're not trying to take away your guns. Of course they're not going to do it right away. Like, they're not going to barge into your house and be like, give your guns. No. They're doing it incrementally because they don't want you to notice. So now, if citizens are disarmed, and the government theoretically wanted to do something bad to its citizens, actually oppress its citizens, if people love throwing this word around, no one would know. No one would know. Who would know? Under this logic of banning misinformation and not being protected under the First Amendment, no one would know if the government turned tyrannical and started attacking its own citizens. Based on COVID alone, we know that misinformation just means the truth. In fact, it would be hateful for you to even imply that a government is capable of doing such thing. Yeah, it's almost like our founding fathers understood something about human nature. I wonder if maybe, they were trying to warn us about something by having the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, Because it's almost like the Second Amendment helps keep the First Amendment, but if we don't have the Second Amendment and we don't have the First Amendment, then it's almost possible that we would lose all of the other amendments. We can't speak, we can't defend ourselves. What makes you think you're gonna keep your so-called rights? Oh yeah, you think your rights come from the government? Well, my goodness, you better hope the government doesn't take them away.
Okay, so this is Minnesotans react to Tim Walz being tapped as Harris's VP, and this is from Fox 9 Minneapolis, so you know them spitting truth. Let's see what fucking CBS Minnesota has to say first.
Tonight, voters in Minnesota and western Wisconsin got a chance to chat with neighbors about all this during National Night Out. The annual event focuses on connecting communities with local law enforcement. David Schumann visited 2 gatherings to get a sense of how families feel about the future.
A special night every year to gather with community happens to fall on the day Minnesota and its governor came under a national spotlight.
I was thinking that it was kind of a far-fetched choice because a lot of people don't know him.
While the rest of the country will now get to know Tim Walz, he already has fans in Stillwater.
My neighbor called me and I was so happy. I was thinking, oh, I don't get to see him win. But then again,
this is an elderly gentlewoman type thing with pink hair. No questions there.
I want him to, go there.
I think it's wonderful to have a representative who would keep our state in mind, and I think it'll, if anything else, increase voter turnout. Voting is like one of the most important things that we can do, and if it gets people to the polls, I'm happy.
And of course, single white woman, single white female. Yeah, they need to make a remake of Single White Female.
Across the St. Croix River, Wisconsin is set to welcome both campaigns for rallies in Eau Claire.
As someone who's just very passionate about the state of our country, I think that it's super cool that they're going all lengths to reach everyone.
In western Wisconsin, though, the Democratic ticket faces an uphill battle. Some in Hudson question Walz's leadership and policies.
When he makes those kind of decisions for people, I'm worried that he's going to make some bad decisions for me.
Wisconsin is once again proving to be a critical battleground. Joe Biden won it.
No chance in fucking dog hell, yeah.
Donald Trump took nearly 60% of the vote. Biden did win Eau Claire County, though. David Schumann, WCCO News.
Okay, here's the truth. Minnesotans react to Tim Walz being tapped as Harris VP.
Will hold their first rally tonight together in Philadelphia. Our Bill County Live Force in St. Paul outside of the governor's residence has been there all morning long. You saw flurry of activity. We knew potentially he was top 2, and now, Bill, what are you hearing there? Now that he is getting the nomination.
Now he is the top dog. Yeah, indeed. In fact, this has sort of turned into a bit of a block party. Let me step out of the way and give you a little idea. There is a national media, there's local media here, but there's also people who live in the neighborhood, people who were just walking their dog this morning, now taking selfies in front of the governor's temporary residence here off of the Mississippi River. An exciting moment. Everyone we spoke with said that they are very excited about this choice for the ticket for Harris and Walz. Keep in mind, they're printing.
Homies, is that what y'all really want to be remembered for? For goodness sake. Is that what you want? It's like the land of 10,000 lakes? Or the land of fucking children butchers? Goodness sake, man. I mean, this is what happens when you erase a place's culture and their heritage and their values. You know what I mean? Like, Minnesota. Nah.
Up those signs now. Those are going to be the official tickets. That is what voters will be deciding on. Again, the folks who have been walking through here just kind of feeding on the energy of this moment that Minnesota is going to be providing a vice presidential candidate. Now, this is not the first time, of course, Minnesota no stranger to being a proving ground for the president's number 2 position. Of course, you had Walter Mondale.
Did he just say grooming ground? Let's see if he said grooming ground.
The energy of this moment that Minnesota is going to be providing a a vice presidential candidate. Now, this is not the first time, of course, Minnesota no stranger to being a proving ground for the president's number 2 position. Of course, you had Walter Mondale, who served under President Carter, 1977 to 1981. Before that, you had Hubert Humphrey under Lyndon Johnson for 4 years, 65 to 69. And now you've got Governor Walz, who could pick all.
So Minnesota has been hard fucking communist ground for the longest time, obviously. And Hubert Humphrey. Oh my God. And they're always the guy in the background, playing the strings. Of course, Minnesota's Democrats are called like the fucking Minnesota Farmers Union or something. So unionizing farmers, for goodness sake. God. Like I knew an old fella who used to be a wool shearer, worked in the shearing sheds in Australia, and said it was always like the conservatives over there and the fucking progressives over there, and never the two shall meet, And I mean, just watching that stuff about the Gateway in Minneapolis, the Gateway, how they systematically destroy a historical part of their town because they wanted to get rid of the hoi polloi. They wanted to get rid of the free thinkers, As far as I can tell, the only good stuff that's come out of, well, I don't know. I mean, Minnesota's got an amazing history. All the Scandinavians coming through in the 19th century, and then, Prince at First Avenue, and their adjoining punk rock, what is it, Side Door, what is it called? I can't remember, but yeah, man, it makes me sad. It makes me really sad, and Minnesota had a proud history of like anti-racist, like not like as in like against neo-Nazis and stuff, like actual fucking dudes who contrived to make Hitler fucking a demon to worship, Anyway.
Things pan out the way the Democrats are hoping could be Vice President Tim Walz. Just the latest on his resume. Really, his star has risen a lot in just the last week. He was such a long shot. We saw some odds makers over the weekend that were 5, 8, 900 to 1. Well, anybody who plays that bet is going to make some cash because he is the pick. And this was not an easy decision. It kept getting whittled down from a dozen candidates to about 6 candidates. Most of those governors, including Shapiro in Pennsylvania. And because
Tim Walz was always the lock. He was always the lock. This misconception of they had to choose like an innocent looking Midwestern man, blah, 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 blah. Nah, man. Nah, that ain't how it worked. That ain't how it fucking worked. Tim Walz is the puppet master of the squad. Yeah? Or at least in the squad. Ilhan Omar is a Minnesotan representative. He probably went to. I don't know how deep he runs with fucking curry cum dumpster Kamala, but no doubt they've known each other for a long time. They've been admirers of each other. I bet his jizz is fucking deep purple, right?
Kamala Harris is going to be doing her very first event and going to introduce the country to Governor Walz, her running mate. A lot of folks thought it was going to be Shapiro because that event happens to be in Pennsylvania and he is the governor there. It's going to be in Philadelphia, but that is not the case. we saw a lot of vehicles starting to show up here a couple of hours ago. They look like Secret Service. Most of them, though, are just state security vehicles, really a phalanx of black sedans and police cars. I talked with one of the women who I caught laughing out loud, kind of giddy when she heard the news. Take a listen to our conversation.
Oh, really?
You guys heard the news?
I just heard. I laughed out loud.
You laughed out loud.
Yes. Well, I'm excited. I hate to lose a wonderful governor, but I love Peggy Flanagan. I'm in early childhood education, and she's a strong advocate, as Walls has been. I'm excited for the country. I'm excited about Harris. I've been excited since I heard the news about that. So I'm thrilled for Minnesota.
This is one of those identity politics events. Idiots. Oh my god, we've got a woman! She's gonna be president! Does she actually have a vulva and, estrogen running through her veins naturally? No, who cares? She's a woman!
To be represented on the ticket, and we will figure this out, and we're going to be strong supporters of the wall.
We will figure this out. She's taking exactly the same stance as the government, supposedly. We'll just figure it out. We've got no agenda. Bomb this, bomb that, cut off that, blah, blah, blah.
And Harris ticket, so.
What do you think he brings to the ticket?
Well, I think he's very practical. I think he's been a...
Yeah, he knows how to cut off children's testicles with just a flashlight and a magnet and a paperclip.
Clear advocate for everyday people. And people know that he's a teacher. He comes from not the urban areas. He has
not the urban areas. Ain't no some jankety ass fucking nigger, is he? Jesus Christ.
A more rural, greater Minnesota background, and I think just the way he talks about things, it makes common sense to people. He doesn't try to use political language. He just tries to get the work done, and I think that's going to be valuable, even though we're not a swing state. I think he's going to speak to swing state voters.
Fucking hell! Like, the temerity of going, we're gonna bring in a dictator from communist Minnesota, and everyone's gonna love him, because we've been totally duped by him. Why the fuck wouldn't y'all? Drinking too much fucking Swedish vodka. Swedish white wine. Not enough meat, not enough, what do they call it? It's like warmed up sangria, I forget what they call it. Mulled wine. Too much not enough mulled wine. Too much white wine. Damn ass. Self-hating Swedes.
Because of how he approaches getting things done.
What's your name?
Beth.
Beth what?
Meninga.
Spell that.
MEN.
Yeah, Beth was very excited. I talked to at least a handful of other people who had very similar comments. They like him, no nonsense, and they think that would be something that really appeals to voters across the country as well. Minnesota, again, getting off the list of flyover states. Back to you guys.
Bill, I know you've been out there all morning. Obviously, this is the kind of the temporary residence for the governor as the Summit Avenue mansion is under construction right now. You said national media was out there from the get-go. We knew that he was on the top two in this list. Kind of what's been the vibe just in the last 20 minutes or so since this news came down?
Well, again, it's kind of block party sort of atmosphere. I hear residents who live across the street kind of giggling and laughing. It's a big news and something they were not expecting. When I pulled up here at about 4 o'clock this morning at 0:30, there was just one vehicle with its headlights on. I walked up and introduced myself, and it was another reporter from another national news outlet, and they've just been staking out the property. There were a lot of posts yesterday about the vehicles going in and out, people thinking that was Secret Service, and maybe that one type of clue as to what might be happening. That's not the case, but he's got the job. He's got the assignment.
All right, Bill, we'll check in with you again.
Oh, wow, okay. This is 1 day ago. Never Waltz. Popular attraction at Minnesota State Fair targets Tim Waltz.
Hi, from the State Fair, the Never Waltz booth. What's this guy gonna win? This looks pretty promising. Slow down, up. Oh, what are the odds? What are the odds? T-shirt winner right there. T-shirt and fan winner.
Oh, wow.
T-shirt and fan winner. We got a little bit of a line. Oh, yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better. Oh no. No. Yeah. Do you know all this? I think you know all of this. That's what neo-Nazis look like.
Coach Walls, right? I played football, the other football here in the United States, as far as, Patrick Mahomes, traffic, Kelsey kind of football. He talks about mind your own damn business. In Minnesota, literally, this governor, when COVID hit, created a snitch hotline where if you saw somebody wearing a mask or not wearing a mask where they should, then you call the hotline, report on your neighbor, and tell on them. This is the same guy who drove 96 miles an hour drunk driving and got his coaching license revoked here in the U.S. and had to volunteer coach instead as an assistant coach, and then rode those coattails to a state championship, apparently. And now we're always Coach Walls. He's a man of the people. I cannot get over the gaslighting that's going on here. Coach Walls, right? I played football, the other football here in the United States, as far as, Patrick Mahomes, traffic, Kelsey kind of football. He talks about mind your own damn business. In Minnesota, literally, this governor, when COVID hit, created a snitch hotline where if you saw somebody wearing a mask or not wearing a mask where they should, then you call the hotline, report on your neighbor, and tell on them. This is the same guy who drove 96 miles an hour drunk driving and got his coaching license revoked here in the U.S. and had to volunteer coach instead as an assistant coach, and then rode those coattails to a state championship, apparently. And now we're always Coach Walls. He was a man of the people. I cannot get over the gaslighting that's going on here. And Democrats are smart in this sense. They know they can get away with it because our stupid, corrupt,
utterly hopeless media here in the U.S. allows them to get away with it, where the fact checkers apparently have been on spring break for the last 3.5 years, so they can say all these things and not worry about any consequences because, well, the media is going to be like, yeah, yay, hip walls, yay, yay. It's all a big joke.
Yeah, come dumpster Kamala.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, World Peace in the Presidency, Breaking with Convention. We're broadcasting from the studios of ThE here in Chicago. I'm Amy Goodman.
Dumb bitch. Ain't even gonna... Democracy Now! Well, with black and red colors, of course. Haha, Brad, okay. Woke media is melting down. Their tears are delicious.
We would begin to see a kind of segregated higher education landscape.
Institutions need to live their values, and not be afraid of being sued.
Woke media is having an absolute meltdown right now, and frankly, your tears are delicious. MSNBC freaks out over the fallout from affirmative action being overturned, a crazy case of censorship, and one of the most deranged anti-Trump TikToks of all time. All this and so much more is coming up on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics, all from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around, and regardless, do hit that like button and do comment with your thoughts as we go along. I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Now, without further ado, let's check in on our friends over at MSNBC, because the ultra-liberal cable news network is not handling some recent news very well. We're going to take a look at a segment covering the new numbers that just came out of MIT that after the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action, show an increase in Asian representation in the student body and a decrease in some other groups like Hispanic and African American. To me, this just seems like, all right, well, they're restoring meritocracy, they're not doing racial favoritism or discrimination anymore, and the results are the results. But MSNBC has a different view. Let's take a listen.
While all eyes were on the DNC this week, MIT released some data that confirmed our worst fears about the Supreme Court. The university's incoming class will be significantly less diverse than in previous years, and that's thanks to last year's ruling that gutted affirmative action. MIT, one of the first to release enrollment data since that ruling, says its percentage of black students dropped to 5% from 15% last year, and the percentage of Hispanic and Latino students dropped to 11%, down from 16%. Overall, all racial and ethnic minority groups had a decrease in enrollment except for Asian Americans, who had a 7% increase. And the university actually saw this coming. It was among several universities and colleges that signed an amicus brief to the High Court 2 years ago in support of keeping race-conscious admissions. Joining me now, Eddie Glaudnier, James S. McDonald, distinguished professor at Princeton University. He's also an MSNBC political analyst professor. It is great to see you as always.
So he's a professor and a fucking political analyst for these clowns. Yeah, that's a legitimate voice you've got to listen to. Fucking hell. And he's got fucking like some Vivian Westwood fucking lady glasses shit rocking.
This is not a surprise to anyone. I think when SCOTUS struck down affirmative action, you and others warned us about the impact this would have on students of color, saying that we would begin to see a kind of segregated higher education.
Yeah, so they won't have a steady stream of dumbass niggas like these fucking clowns.
Education landscape. Your initial reaction now that we have seen these initial new numbers from one university, and what are you hearing from others in academia?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you, Amy. We knew this was going to happen, as you said. I suspect that the data will be similar.
Well, if when he was in power, he'd actually empowered black people and people of color to actually strive and aim higher and actually study and become excellent, then this fucking problem would be happening. You know? I mean, affirmative action should have been about letting people through the gates and fucking getting them on their way, if anything, but that's not what they've done. They've just propped up a bunch of fucking puppets. A bunch of willing fucking renter rioters, you know? And shit ain't gonna stay like this forever. Nah, hell no. Hell no. I went to college back in the day when you actually, well, I don't know, man. I mean, there was still protests, there was still things going on, but there was still a rigorous academic culture, I think. Maybe that's why I didn't do good at college. I don't fucking know. Back then, they were actually like feeding like the actual, you know, postmodern communist manifesto to things. So I don't know. We all thought that if we understood Derrida and Foucault and stuff, we totally get puss. And a lot of them did. A lot of them did. Ultimately, you got to remember that these are just fucking limp dick pussy hounds at this point.
Right. The other
serial monogamists and shit like that.
Is my own institution, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Dartmouth, Penn, Cornell, and the like. We should probably see this across the board in terms of elite institutions and you know, ranking or top state public institutions. You know, we knew this. We knew the data. We saw what happened in California. We know just 10 years after Prop 209 was passed, only 96 freshmen, black freshmen, were admitted to a class of over 4,000 at UCLA. We saw a 44% decline between 2006 and 2022 at the University of Michigan. And so this was, in fact, the expected outcome. And what's so tragic about it, there are those folk who are reading this outcome as an example of what happens when merit is taken as the principal deciding factor, when in fact, this is actually proving the opposite.
So there's so much to unpack here. First, we should talk about how ridiculous it is to describe this outcome as segregated. No, what the heck? Absolutely not. There's still students of all different racial groups. They're just no longer actively discriminating in favor of some racial groups at the expense of others, which is what they were doing under the affirmative action system. And it's funny because this segment, the numbers and everything they're providing, actually proves our point. The critics of affirmative action always said, look, they're putting the thumb on the scale for some racial groups over others. And now when they switch to a race-blind or race-neutral approach, you see Asian representation go up and some other groups' representation go down.
Same thing happened when they started, what is it, like gender neutral, like acting awards and stuff like that. They had, you know, unless Adele's in the fucking mix, you know.
Yet at the time, progressives and Democrats regularly kind of gaslit us and said, nobody's getting accepted or denied just because of race. It's just part of a holistic admissions process. It's not a thing that's holding people back or boosting people and getting them admitted when they wouldn't otherwise be. Which my rejoinder to that was always, well, like, that's not true. But if it was, then why are you so dedicated to preserving it? Well, now we know that it was true. They were discriminating. And that's fundamentally unfair to those Asian students who deserve to get into MIT on the merits, but couldn't and didn't because of their race, because of a demographic trait they didn't choose and can't control. And actually, you know, of course, every Black and Hispanic student should have access to an equal shot at getting into an elite college or any college, but you're not actually doing a favor in the old system by putting people into schools they actually couldn't get into on their own merits because of their race, because that worsened the achievement gap that you then see in colleges between the racial groups, where some Black and Hispanic students would struggle more than their white counterparts. And maybe that's because they were being admitted to schools because of their race that they couldn't actually get into on their merits. There's still going to be plenty of students of different races and different backgrounds at MIT and other colleges, but the key difference now is that they will be ones who deserve it, who got there on their merits, and that's actually a good thing for them. Because under the old regime, you never knew if a minority student who was admitted to an MIT, for example, was an affirmative action pick or not. You didn't know that. A lot of them truly were excellent and deserved to be there, but were unfairly tarred as affirmative action admissions when that wasn't actually the case. Well, now at least we know the truth. We know that everybody got in a race-neutral process. You still have different racial groups and nationalities and ethnicities all represented. You have less manufactured brochure-level diversity, sure, but you have a meritocratic system, and that is good and just and right. It is not some doomsday scenario or a crisis the way these MSNBC folks are making it out to be.
The general principle when my thing was, if you wanted to get into college that you wanted, fucking work hard. That said, I didn't get into journalism at the time because, I'm too stupid for that, I guess. But, you know, look, and I knew a guy who got exactly the same entry score for college as me and had to go full fee because he went to a public school and I went to a private school. So, yeah.
The guest in particular, the Princeton professor, had some pretty extreme and I think out of touch things to say about this. Let's listen to more of what he had to say.
So what does it mean that we can't take into consideration race, right? What it will mean is that they can't build the kind of diverse class that they want to build. And we know that focusing on class alone can't address this issue. So part of what we have to deal with is the bad faith of these actors who are kind of pressing this issue. We also need to understand that this is a kind of two-front assault, not only on admissions, but DEI generally. So even if you get admitted to these institutions, they're attacking DEI offices so that the experience is not, shall we say, as welcoming, as supportive as it might be. So I think institutions need to live their values and not be afraid of being sued. Bring the full weight of their reputation to bear in the fight for a diverse higher education landscape.
Well, whole lot of
diverse higher education landscaping. For me, a diverse higher education landscape would be graduating doctors, nurses, intelligent people, a couple of stupids, engineers, civil servants, etc., etc. Not just fucking Starbucks monkeys, you know?
Crazy in a very little space of time there, but first and foremost, I think the idea that universities should be trying to build a certain racial composition of their incoming classes has always struck me as bizarre. I really don't think they should be doing any such thing. I think they should just be admitting the best and most qualified students, and if that's 90% Asians or 2% Asians, 90% black people or 4% black people, so be it. I mean, that's always been fine to me. That's what
So true equality, where everybody has a chance, ain't fucking good enough, is it? Because ultimately chance isn't enough for some raggedy ass lazy niggas, you know? I don't fucking know.
Believe in and what most Americans believe in, and these are taxpayer-funded universities. Even MIT and private organizations receive so much federal money that they're really not supposed to be allowed to discriminate on the basis of race the way they were doing under the old system. So I think that's perfectly fine, and I don't think we're losing anything that colleges can't racially gerrymander their student body in this way. I also will say that
racially gerrymandering, that's a really good concept. Wow, racially gerrymandering. And of course, gerrymandering, if you don't know, is basically where you fucking divide up you divide up voting areas to, like, basically how we say branch stack, faggot stack, you could call it. Yeah, interesting. Racial gerrymandering, right, fucking A.
Say that, like, people want to get rid of DEI on campus so that minorities don't feel comfortable is absurd. That's not why anyone wants to get rid of DEI. They want to get rid of it because It's a huge
Evil.
waste that teaches toxic radical politics and often stuff that heightens racial divisions and divides on campus. Very few, if any, really nobody is saying that we should not have, discrimination protections on campus for students, and there should be no administrators who, enforce the rules and make sure nobody's harassed or bullied. Of course, we should have it be a welcoming space for everyone. I don't think anybody's seriously arguing that. The ThE is something very different. It's this kind of racially discriminatory in its own right and toxic and divisive political movement. So people seeking to restrict that are not trying to make minorities feel unwelcome on campus. We can have a debate over DEI on campus. That's a bit of a ridiculous straw man now. So come on. And finally, it's really disturbing.
You could say that they might be bad faith actors. Possibly. No faith actors. We're bad faith actors because, God, belief, faith, not belief. God and faith are bad, evil. If you're not for Satan, you're evil.
See, this Princeton professor suggests that Ivy League universities should essentially defy the Supreme Court. He's saying, don't worry about getting sued. Put your full weight behind this. No, sir. We live in a society with the rule of law, and the Supreme Court is the highest court in our land.
I mean, it's amazing that, some janky ass old nigger fucking grifter doesn't understand anything. And when something doesn't go his way after feeding bullshit to fucking a generation of likely minds, he's fucking butthurt. And it's as well for a professor, it's God help him if he actually has, students in there who have critical thought faculties and stuff, eh?
They issued a ruling declaring affirmative action illegal. Schools and universities have to follow that. And you are crazy if you're suggesting they should brazenly defy the law in order to try to preserve their ability to racially discriminate. You know who else did that? Actual racists in the South who refused integration orders during the civil rights movement. I mean, it's crazy stuff, and all that would happen is these universities would get slapped down in court, they'd waste money on lawsuits, they would ultimately lose anyway. So advocating that is both hypocritical, right, from the people that complain, sometimes correctly, about Republicans and Trump's attacks on the rule of law, and two, it's pointless. It's a waste of time, and it's really a disappointing and bizarre thing to say. What he should be saying, this professor or others who want to see increased diversity, is okay. Why is it that the merit-based approach that's race neutral doesn't result in an equal demographic distribution to the population and student bodies? And that, of course, has to do with a lot of systemic inequalities and issues. And why is that? Well, why do Black students have lower SAT scores sometimes on average, not all, but on average, than Asian students? There's something about being Black that makes your SAT scores lower. That's crazy. There's some access to education and opportunities and SAT prep and that kind of thing that we should be working to address and ameliorate and make more equal and fair for everyone. I'm a big proponent of school choice legislation.
This brings up another issue that sort of needs to be contended with, and we had a bit of a reckoning about this in Australia. Basically, the efficacy and the necessity of college education, of university education. Because when I came through in the late 90s, early millennium, it was a given that everybody would go to college, and then, I probably learned more at it's some people just aren't university material, and that's not a bad thing. Go to community college, get an apprenticeship, all these things. It's And that's another thing, like, why all the clamoring to get into college anyway? You become a plumber, an electrician, a farmer. You're making stacks compared to these, basically building fucking phone monkeys for data retrieval services. You know, it's effed up, man.
That helps people, especially minority students who are trapped in failing schools, go elsewhere, and they often see better outcomes as a result. But we should be focused on the root causes, right, of why a merit-based, race-blind approach doesn't always result in these equal outcomes, perfect cookie cutter. Well, that's because people are coming in from different places, and we need to address the root causes, not jerry-rig the system at the end by treating people different because of their race to put people in positions and into schools they wouldn't actually get into and aren't actually qualified for. That is a disservice to everyone else, and it's actually a disservice.
And we were actually taught at school, it's just like, homies, you think you want to go to college, but college ain't fucking keggers and sorority parties 24/7 or nothing, you know? Like, a vast majority of you will not get through college, was what we were told, you know? And I mean, for me, it took me 5 years to get through my undergrad, you know? And basically was never able to complete another, we say tertiary education level certificate or anything. I got a certificate for, and that was, yeah, and that was done privately, you know?
To them too. So MSNBC can get as up in arms as they want over the fallout from affirmative action being overturned. But honestly, I think most Americans view this as a positive step towards a healthier, fairer, and more equal society.
What do you
let me know what you
think
in the comments below. Are you happy to see affirmative action heading the way of the dodo bird in America? And now we've got to talk about one of the craziest violations of the First Amendment I've ever seen caught live on camera. This is footage from a city council meeting in Surprise, Arizona, where a woman went to complain about a public official and was shut down and even threatened with arrest and forced out of the building by a security or police officer for simply exercising her First Amendment rights. I typically don't like to play super long clips because I want to intersperse it with my commentary and keep it live, but I don't really know a better way to do this other than to just show you the full 4 or 5 minute video. So let's take a look at that and then we'll meet back here to discuss.
So I'm going to take this time, I know you guys need to go into ThE session, so out of respect for that.
Cyberbully the government. This is a hard out, beautiful redhead woman, beautiful ginger hair, just so much soul, so much love. I can just feel it already.
The item that I had requested to speak on earlier was during the consent agenda, item number 6, as it pertains to the contract of employment for the city attorney. So I'm going to start this off with, in the contractual agreement with Mr. Robert Wingo, there is a stipulation that says he can renegotiate his pay rate for an exceptional jump. Cambridge University defines exceptional as something that is much greater than usual, especially in skill, intelligence, quality, etc., i.e. what is not expected of somebody in a role. And I have concerns with allocating more funds to him specifically for a few different reasons. Point number 1 is, according to an article that was published in the Surprise Independent just shy of 12 months ago by Jason Stone, the city attorney is the second highest paid individual in the entirety of the city of Surprise employees, and at that time, he was listed at making about $266,000 annually. Where this becomes important is he is 11th overall in the entire state, and he actually only makes only $10,000, again, at the time the article was printed, less than the attorney in Scottsdale, and Scottsdale has about 100,000 people larger than what Surprise covers. Recent months have uncovered numerous violations or alleged violations in blatant disregard, I would say, for not only the Arizona revised statutes, the state bar, rules of professional conduct, but also the Arizona state constitution and
the Bill of Rights at the federal level. Title 16, I won't rehash everything, but we are all too well and familiar with what took place during the election season and the violations thereof. City clerk is our elections officer. Nothing was done with the violations, and the city attorney did nothing as far as that. Title 9 and 38 have conflict of interest pieces of information. It was deemed that there was a conflict of interest. Title 39, there are numerous public records requests that I have open right now that are, quote, pending legal review that I am entitled to request.
I've got to interrupt you here because
Okay, are you gonna stop the timer?
this is the public meeting forum that you agree to when you speak, and I want to read this to you. That there are oral communications during the city council meeting may not be used to lodge charges or complaints against any employee of the city or members of the body, regardless of whether such person is identified in the presentation by the name or by any other reference that tends to identify him or her.
That's all fine, well and good, but that's fine, a violation of my First Amendment
So
rights.
that's, well, this is your warning, okay?
A warning for what?
A warning for attacking the city attorney personally.
This is all factual information.
It doesn't matter.
You're violating my First Amendment rights.
This is what you agree to when you first speaking. This is the form.
It is unconstitutional, Mayor Hall.
Well, it's not unconstitutional.
It is.
And if you're
The Supreme Court has upheld, I could get up here and I could swear at you for 3 straight minutes, and it is protected speech by the Supreme Court. It is. Why don't you look at case law?
No, you can't.
I can.
So if you want to be
Also, the chair can
you want to be
engage with me, so point of order.
escorted out of here, you want to be escorted out
You're
of here.
violating my First Amendment rights.
Talking.
You are violating my First Amendment rights.
That's your opinion.
It's not a
Okay.
matter of opinion.
Do you want to be escorted out, Ms. Massey? Because that's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen in the future also. Anytime you attack.
That's why you changed the rules.
Or any.
That's why you changed the rules.
This has been on the back of this form.
I understand, Mayor Hall, but that is completely unconstitutional.
No, it's.
You're also engaging in debate, and so you should actually be giving the floor to somebody else managing.
Chief, could you have somebody come down here and escort Ms. Massey?
Really, is that necessary?
Yes.
In front of my 10-year-old daughter, you're gonna escort me out for expressing my First Amendment rights.
She can go with you.
I'm not leaving.
Well,
I'm expressing my first. Do not touch me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me.
Fucking knock the cunt out.
Are you kidding me?
yes.
Why am I being detained under my charges? Under what charges?
Okay, so I'll.
I have personal property. I have you cannot touch me.
Yeah. She can go. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go into E section.
Motion to go into each session?
Second. Then move to second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Going into E section.
This is a point-blank violation of the First Amendment. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, which disclaimer I do some work with, has a resource on their website that I'll link to in the description where they explain what rights you have at a public hearing or public comment period at a local government proceeding, and you very clearly do have the right. Whatever some stupid piece of paper says, that you can't have people sign away their rights. That's not binding. That's not valid. You cannot do this. You cannot remove people because they're criticizing a government official or because of their viewpoint. If you're going to have public comment periods, you have to leave them open regardless of people's viewpoints. And in fact, criticizing your government officials that are being paid, and I don't know anything about this city attorney or whatever she's worked up about, it's actually irrelevant. She is a U.S. citizen with a First Amendment right to petition her government for redress. It's literally in the First Amendment's text, and there's nothing more typical and embodying that than what she tried to do here. And instead, she was unfairly assaulted, arrested, had her rights violated in front of her 10-year-old daughter. It's an absolute disgrace, and this mayor should be publicly shamed, and yes, folks at FIRE are going to likely sue them, and I'm wishing them the best, because this kind of thing is absolutely unacceptable. And to my conservative and Republican friends who still defend qualified immunity, the government doctrine that essentially gives government officials a liability shield in most cases from personal civil liability, being sued and having to pay damages when they violate people's rights, well, this is a great example of why we need to get rid of, or at least really reform qualified immunity, because she should be able to...
Qualified immunity. I'm qualified. I don't need to live by the rules of the land. Jesus Louises, that's crazy. That's crazy. And of course in Australia we just call that law LAW, you know. LORE versus LAW. That's the real fight, you know.
to this mayor who violated her rights and had her arrested, or at least, I don't know if she was actually charged with anything, but at least removed from the building by police, she should be able to sue him and have him personally have to compensate her for violating her rights. But she can't, most likely, because of qualified immunity, which is not a good thing from a government constitutional perspective. And I just need my conservative Republican friends who, support qualified immunity because back the blue or whatever to realize, no, we have to be able to hold our elected officials accountable. You guys let me know what you think of this crazy story down in Arizona in the comments below. Have you ever seen anything like this? Have you ever been to your city council meetings? I do want to know. All right, now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app. Today, we're gonna watch one TikToker's confused and hysterical video with kind of apocalyptic and doomsday warnings about a second Trump presidency. Let's take a look.
Why would I not vote for Kamala? I am a queer person who was assigned female at birth living in America. My options are literally, if I vote for one person, and life and safety if I vote for Kamala. Like, of course I would vote Kamala. It makes sense that my community of people are supporting him.
Bitch loves curry and coconuts, no doubt, no doubt.
Voting for Kamala. The only group who would not suffer under Trump's reign are literally cis white men. That's it. One group of people. And America is made up of a lot of different groups of people, not just cis white men. So it makes
so white men and fat people, basically, is it? Is that what it is? White cis men and lard asses. Nah. Hell no. Well, this woman thinks it's white men, niggers, and fat people.
Makes a lot of sense why people are backing Kamala. And even a good chunk of cis white men that I've seen aren't even supporting Trump. That man is a compulsive liar. He'll post one thing on social media and then go and say something else at a rally. What he's saying and what he's doing doesn't match up. It never does. Wow! The man who's using AI industry has tried to swing some of the voters to come and vote for him. Like, that is just so sad. That is so sad. But scary at the
This woman totally had a pulmonary embolism. Her face is just about to explode with excitement. And then afterwards it's like, you have had your 1.5 seconds on this earth. Goodbye.
the same time, because AI has gotten so good that a lot of older generations of people can't tell the difference between generative AI and real life. A lot of us younger folks.
Exactly, this is generative AI at its best.
And people who are constantly on the internet can, but not everyone can, and that's terrifying. And honestly, shouldn't even be allowed for candidates to use while they're running for president of the United States. Wow.
Oh, well then Kamala's fucked, eh? Can't use deep state fucking manipulation tactics. Oh my god, what are we gonna do? It's like getting rid of DEI. It's so unfair.
And it's quite literally someone who lies versus someone who has proven through their actions that they do need good in this world.
Yikes, there's so much about this video that I absolutely can't stand, including the very childish demeanor that the message is delivered in. Like, we're not toddlers, babe. I don't know why you're saying Trump and talking to us in this way. Like, it's really not pleasant. So maybe just stop. And look, I am not here to tell you who to vote for. I am not here to endorse either candidate in any way, shape, or form.
You should,
but the reason I wanted to address this video is because of the hysteria and the unrealistic fear-mongering it entails that unfortunately is widespread on the internet, widespread on TikTok especially. For example, this person suggested that if Trump wins, trans people will be unalived but if Kamala wins, they'll be happy, healthy, and alive. That is delusional. That is deranged. There is no basis in reality for that observation or that claim. It is pure and unmitigated fear-mongering. Donald Trump was president of this country for 4 years already. We know what he did and what he didn't do. And he did some things on trans issues that I did disagree with. For example, I disagreed with his restrictions on transgender people's ability to serve in the military. I argued at the time, and I argue now, that if they can pass a psychological and medical evaluation and be declared fit for duty, like anyone else, they should be allowed to serve. But one thing he did was kill trans people or round them up and unalive them. It's just madness. Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't, I don't even know where they get this stuff from. You can argue that Trump would be bad for trans Americans. I think there's some truth to that, but you know, the election's about a lot more than just that one issue or that one group. But we,
you know, bring back transvestites and transsexuals. Make it fucking simple again.
you can't argue is that you're all going to be dead, and that if Kamala wins, you'll all be alive. Like, that's just not true. You're scaring people needlessly. Millions of young people on the internet are being exposed to alarmist fear porn like this, and they believe it. It's really destructive and harmful to scare people like this. And I will also just say,
of course, she's not actually telling people to vote. I don't know, fuck. Maybe these cunts will vote, who knows. Low information people. Disinformation people. And isn't it really telling? You don't really hear about disinformation anymore, do you? Like, actively untelling truths. Which makes you go, disinformation's bad, right? Misinformation's bad. Is information bad as well? And how about re-information? Cross-information? I don't know.
Side note about the whole thing about AI imagery. I do agree that politicians really shouldn't use AI-created images of their opponents, because it is kind of misleading and they should not do that. But the idea that anyone can't tell that pictures like this are fake, the one of Kamala with the communism and everything, like, come on now. You must think people are really stupid. It's obviously not a real photo.
It's amazing.
And also, anyone who would be swayed by that is like already a Trump supporter, right? So it's not consequential. It's not meaningful. And of all the issues dividing this country and dividing us in this election, the use of AI imagery in political ads just seems pretty minor and pretty obscure to me. So the fact that you dedicated half your pro-Kamala video to that was odd, to say the least. And look, I actually agree that Trump lies a lot. He says a lot of things that are not true and not correct. But Kamala does too, maybe less frequently, but she's pretty insincere in a lot of ways. She's flip-flopped on tons of issues. She's demonstrated a
come on, homie, pick a motherfucking side now. Put your money where your mouth is, homie.
disdain for the Constitution, similar to how Trump has, and just said she would do things that violates it and doesn't care. Famously in 2020, she talked about how she would just try to ban certain types of guns via executive order, and Biden pointed out you can't do that. You need Congress, and that's unconstitutional. She laughed at him.
Can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things when he says he can do it by executive order. Does the vice president have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Let's be constitutional. We got a constitution.
Yes, we can.
So look, there's plenty of concern to be had about her and her abusing power as well. So again, like, I'm really not here to tell you guys to vote for who to vote for. That's your decision. But I do just want you to be in touch with reality. If you are under the impression that either way, one candidate will exterminate a group of people, that's not happening. That's not true.
Well, come now. Come now, young Brad. Come now, young Bradley. Is that what you really think? Is that what you really think? The erasure of gay people, the erasure of lesbians, the erasure of black people, of African Americans. Fucking replace them all with fucking white women and curry eating coconuts.
That's not reality. There's plenty of true, actual fact-based things to criticize either candidate about. We do not and should not resort to unhinged fear-mongering and alarmism. But on TikTok especially, that's what so much of the political discourse is utterly consumed by. And I find it hysterical and reprehensible. Honestly, really harmful stuff. But you let me know what you think in the comments below, and do hit that like button to reward me for suffering through this asinine, alarmist content. And now, I'll wrap up the show by reading a few of your comments from the last episode. And one person writes, my CEO has stated several times that if you have 5 people in a room and they all agree, 4 of them don't need to be there. Our company has existed since 2007 and is now expanding into European markets. So he's got to be doing something right. And I think this perspective has something to do with that. I love that, honestly. I think that's great. And I completely agree. And I'm not surprised the company is doing well. They truly do value diversity of thought, which again, in my view, is the most important kind of diversity of all. Another person comments, my sister-in-law is a speech pathologist and part of her job involves home visits. A while ago, she's given a new hire to show the ropes to, and during the day, they're driving between patients. It comes up in conversation that her husband, my brother, is a cop. The next day, the new hire goes to management and says it's too traumatic to work with someone married to law enforcement. That is pathetic and outrageous in so many ways. But I also just have to say, like, you're going to see more offensive.
Trigger warning. Kapow!
Some stuff than that, doing home visits as a speech pathologist. I mean, it's at least stuff that's more offensive to you. What are you going to do if there's a patient with a Trump flag outside your house? Just not help them? I think you went into the wrong field, this person did, if they're really that fragile and that toxic and that close-minded. So really unfortunate. Another person says, Zuckerberg acting righteous about censorship is hilarious. All the Meta apps are heavily censored by his Zuckerbots. I mean, yeah, I agree, but I actually had, remember the Men Are Trash video that I reacted to? My reaction of that got taken down on Instagram for hate speech, but their account is still up. So they can say it, but if I criticize it, I'm doing hate speech. Make it make sense. I can't. Another person writes, I didn't send this small tip because they sent a super thanks. Remember guys, if you put a super thanks, I'll definitely read your comment. Another person writes, I didn't send a small tip so you can read my comment as I have nothing intelligent to say. No, I'm sure you do. However, I did want to thank you for your open-minded, intelligent, entertaining way of delivering political and other information. I really didn't follow politics much until I found your channel. You're so down to earth. You remind me of the cute boy next door. I know you're gay, but us straight ladies can still appreciate a good-looking man. And you've given me something to really look forward to each day as a disabled individual with 24/7 chronic pain. Thanks again. Have a wonderful week. You see, guys, I wanted to share this, not because of the super chat, though that is appreciated, but because, like, I am so grateful that I get to be that for you guys, that I get to, you know, brighten your day in some small way or make you smile or make you laugh. And I don't take that for granted. I really feel blessed.
And don't get me wrong, like, I love how Brad is basically slow killing people. Just slowly, you know. You know, and I guess that's because, like, I've never been in that central spot for whatever reason. I've been too fucking hardcore to, you know. But more power to you, Brad.
To be able to do that and know that I'm helping people in these kinds of situations. My heart goes out to you. I can't imagine, but the idea that I'm helping, even in a small way, to brighten up people's lives and maybe leave them a little bit more informed, that's really meaningful to me, and I'm so appreciative of that opportunity, guys. I really am. All right, everybody, that is it for this episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do make
Ooh, Taylor Nation is fracturing. Haha. Bring it on, Brett.
So shockingly to many people, Taylor Swift has stayed out of this election cycle so far. No endorsements, no posts, nothing. She's been busy on tour and being in love with her very, very normal all-American football playing boyfriend and getting to know all of his relatively Republican friends, like Harrison Butler, Brittany Mahomes, and randomly my dog sitter's brother, and many others. But that has not stopped the Swifties from trying to mobilize for Kamala on her behalf. And in turn, Swifties for Trump has taken off. Before we dive in though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the comment section if you have not already, and of course, ring that notification bell so that you never miss a next episode. So in previous years, Taylor's voice has been very loud in the American political landscape, a choice that was well documented in her film Miss Americana. And as most people who follow her know, even though she was raised in a Republican home, she definitely drank the feminist Kool-Aid, which fueled her girl boss hatred of Donald Trump and...
No. She didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I know this for a fact. She never drank the Kool-Aid. She's just a fucking... She did it for the De Niro's. She did it, I don't know, or contracts or fucking whatever it is. But, I mean, I had a friend who was dating someone in her close circle who was like, the trans stuff is shit, the woman stuff is bullshit. She doesn't believe any of this crap. She's just a performer, you know what I mean? And she follows her scripts. She does what she needs to, and that's all it is. I'm doing a lot better today. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Stella. I'm so happy for you. You know, keep it in your heart, sister. You know what they say, you gotta hide your love away sometimes, you know. Good for you, dude. Really good for you. I'm really, really happy.
Her red home state of Tennessee, specifically Marsha Blackburn. Taylor Swift hates Marsha Blackburn.
I can't see another commercial and see her.
But this year, interestingly, she's been totally silent. A couple of months ago, she posted a link to register to vote before the primaries, but that's literally all. And as a result, her fans have become increasingly agitated. Just take a look. This person said, any idea why Taylor Swift is suddenly silent on politics? Even after Trump just posted fake images of her endorsing him, y'all, I think that man is getting to her. Now, there's kind of a debate about whether this girl is saying, you know, Trump has gotten to her or Travis has gotten to her, because a lot of people are saying that Travis is not as left-wing as they were led to believe. I don't really care either way, but that is going on in the comments. So, since people have noticed this unusual silence from Miss Swift, they decided to take it upon themselves to start a political movement. So, over the last couple of weeks, a page called Swifties for Kamala popped up, and they have garnered about 47,000 followers.
Shifty Swifties. Let's call them Shifty Swifties. A little bit where, bit where, bit where. You ain't seen me coming, right? A bit of fast show Kanekos for you.
And let's be honest, I was expecting more. I honestly was expecting more from mobilization, so they might have their work cut out for them. Now, all of this came together after one lone Swiftie tweeted that they should try and come together. He said, I feel like us US Swifties should mass organize a help campaign for Kamala Harris and spread how horrendous Project 2025 would be to help get people's butts down to the polls in November. Like, if we don't want democracy to end, we really need to move and push blue votes. This tweet literally just gives me a headache. I could do an entire episode just about this. Number one, Trump has disavowed Project 2025. He did not create Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation, political think tank, did create it, and they're not connected to Trump. So first of all, just put that out of your mind, people. And also, it's your party that held a fake primary, issued a coup to get the sitting president to not run again, and then just ushered in Kamala Harris, when literally the entire country up until this point has hated her. So do not talk to me about saving democracy. Just like pipe down for a second. Again, I'm getting off point. But this movement only grew from here, from this one single tweet. To the point that last night, and I'm sorry guys, I feel like I betrayed you. I'm so pissed that I wasn't there. They held a Swifties for Kamala Zoom call. And I feel like we need to hop on this whole, like, Zoom call rally trend. I don't know what I would call it. Like, rational people who hate Kamala. I can put it together if we want to do that. I'll even get stickers made with my friends over at Sticker Mule. Because in a world where both corporations bend the knee to literally every leftist demand, it is refreshing to find a company that is not only providing great products, but also taking a stand against the insanity of the radical left. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you about my new partnership with Sticker Mule. Sticker Mule is the go-to place for custom stickers, magnets, shirts, and more. And now they are bringing you exclusive Daily Wire merch. And so I urge you to go check out this collaboration because in doing so, you will be supporting two companies that are standing up to this literal unhinged nonsense. It's really a win-win. You support Daily Wire, you support Sticker Mule, and you stand up to leftist insanity. So head over to stickermule.com/dailywire today and make your voice heard. Again, guys, that is stickermule.com/dailywire. And don't worry.
Is it Sticker Mule versus Sticker Donkey? I don't know. Where are all my sticker donkeys at? Donkey fight.
Hurry, my fellow Zoom call ralliers. I'll get some stickers made for us at some point. But I'm so bothered that I have not been able to join any of these calls. Anyway, they hosted this.
Can I actually say I actually kind of by accident ended up on one of these Zoom calls in Australia? Because in Australia, the grift has been for the last couple of election cycles, basically entering independent candidates in conservative seats, basically shadow run, not even fucking shadow run, I come to realize, by our Communist Party, you know? And yeah, like I went in actually thinking he was an independent, and then when I asked questions about policy, government alignment, all of this stuff, they wouldn't answer the questions. And I'm like, what is going on? And yeah, it was run like a fucking silent rally. It was disgusting. Telling people what to do, how to do it, their messaging, their communication styles, all this shit. And basically, you know, it was absolutely crazy. It was fucking mental. Bunch of dumbass niggas, man. Totally dumbass fucking coast bogans. Do y'all have coast bogans in America? Well, what do you call them? Fucking coast hicks. Coast hillbillies, I don't know.
Last night, and it looked like it was a special time. Let's just watch.
And that is what I love best about Swifties. You are resilient, and
Warren,
you know how to
Elizabeth
take
Warren.
on bullies. And
also now she's a white woman again, I guess. Ain't no Cherokee talking here, motherfuckers.
you know how to be your most authentic, most joyful selves.
I mean, what even is that? Like, that was the most gross display of ego stroking I have ever seen, and it was so fluffy and superficial. You're so authentic, and you stand up to bullshit so you can stand up to Donald Trump. Oh my God, Elizabeth Warren, go do something productive for the United States for once.
Like open a casino. Open a casino in Idaho. Yeah, fucking race baiting twist.
Instead of literally trying to destroy the fabric of our country, which is what you do. Pocahontas, 90% of the time. I mean, like, how is this real? But guys, it gets better because Carole King showed up as a surprise guest.
Players gonna play.
Oh no!
Hey,
No, Carol! Come on, Carol!
I'm just gonna shake.
See, that's not how Carole King made a career in the 70s. Oh my God. Maybe I was never a big fan of Carole King, but my fucking idiot girlfriend in high school fucking loved Tapestry. Loved it. No, I don't agree.
I have no words. I literally have no words. Like, JD Vance was right.
Jenny Vance was right about these women. I'm sorry, I have to say, this is so bad. Like, are women okay? I grew up loving Carol King. Her rendition with James Taylor of Up on the Roof. Oh my god, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. So please, for my sake, Carol, please sit this one out. Because I cannot withstand the secondhand embarrassment that I just got from that clip. Now guys, even though all of this is objectively very cringe and doesn't actually look all that powerful of a mobilization, the mainstream media obviously took note and they leaned into this Swifties for Kamala movement. And earlier this week, Cosmopolitan magazine published this. Swifties for Kamala is mobilizing fans, even Taylor herself isn't. And the entire article was just a puff piece. It was actually quite long. They pulled a lot of stuff out of their ass to make it that long. But guys, on social media, it painted a totally different picture. I was honestly flabbergasted. Look at all of these. Cosmopolitan forgot that Swifties are smart, not in the Delulu era anymore, and have taste. Swifties for Trump, Swifties for Trump, Swifties for Trump 2024. LOL, this magazine will be defunct soon. Go woke, go broke. Absolutely not. Nice try. It's Swifties for Trump, Swifties for Trump. Well, that backfired. How about no? I did not see one comment for the past 5 days that was happy about this article.
And who the fuck was in that Zoom meeting anyway? What, 7,000 fucking Chinese-run bots?
Or in support of Swifties for Kamala. Literally, guys, I scrolled for about 5 minutes. It was all this. And I bet Cosmo wasn't expecting that response. But they should have, to be honest. And if they had spent enough time on TikTok prior to writing that article, they would have known better. Because take a look at what's trending. It's girls like this. Swifties for Trump. And by the way, I don't know who this girl is, but if you see this, you are adorable and beautiful, and this is precious, and I love all of this, so keep doing what you're doing. But it's not just her. Watch these videos. These have been dominating my For You page the last week. So everybody is using her songs and then announcing that they're voting for Trump. Here's another.
I love putting on just like a very low-key, casual outfit. It's great.
Here's another.
I never thought I'd see the day that Swifties were rallying for Trump. I guess something with ISIS happened. There's a lot of terrorism going on. I guess she had to shut down shows because of it. And a lot of them are just saying, you know, if Trump was in office, this would have never, ever happened.
And you know what? They wouldn't be wrong. We talked about that in an episode a couple of weeks ago. We'll link it below. And that event absolutely should wake up Swifties. I mean, these videos are everywhere. Here's one last one.
It's so weird that VIP thinks they're so way too cool to do this.
So, my friends, all of this is to say that hope is not completely lost when it comes to women or the Swifties. And I've said it before, and I will say it again, even though it's controversial in my line of work, but even though Taylor Swift has historically been left, I don't see her as this detriment to society like so many conservatives do. She is a far better role model than most people in entertainment and Hollywood. She's supposed to be incredibly kind, she has good values, she's incredibly close with her family, which is more than you can say about the majority of people in Hollywood, and more importantly than anything, she has proven that she is tolerant enough to have friends whose ideas differ from hers, and that speaks volumes. Well guys, I hope you liked that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already.
Okay, let's get a bit of trigonometry up in this. Oh no, we'll go with, yeah, okay. Glenn Beck wants Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will make America unrecognizable. Hell yeah.
Wow. I want to show something. This new ad from the Kamala Harris campaign is absolutely stunning. Cut 5.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border.
What is it? Yeah.
As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking.
Yeah, because they've already let it, they've got enough fentanyl. You've got enough fentanyl in fucking, in America right now to kill a fucking herd of elephants every 5 minutes. They don't need any more fentanyl in. They can synthesize it within the country now anyway, you know. And hey, if they're employing border security, they could just go get a couple of these muzzers to fucking do the job. You know, they get to shoot Mexicans. Hooray!
Protecting the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
Unbelievable. I mean, this is misinformation, gang. This is propaganda.
This is disinformation.
You know, the average person does not know who she is. So they're finding now in polls that they are asking people, you know, on the streets, hey, do you know who she is? No, I have no idea who she is. They don't know who she is. And so they're just filling this in with lies and propaganda. Now, why would Kamala Harris do this? She has been for the open borders. She's for the mass immigration. She's been tough on criminals. Are you kidding me? She helped pay for people to get out of jail during BLM. She is all for the no bail for criminals. You don't have to stay in jail. You're immediately released. You know.
And interestingly enough, my mom, I love my mom. She's such a wonderful woman, but she was radicalized in the 70s. She went to a university in Australia called Monash, which was notoriously progressive and you know, leftist. You know, they collected money for the Viet Cong during Vietnam, and I mean, she went to a prestigious ladies college, I guess they called them back in the day, called McRobertson, and in high school, she did 4 years. Guess what language? Russian. She did it, and then, you know, she did, like, you know, she's taught Indigenous, you know, she did special needs teaching, so her heart was always in a good place. But, you know, she was fed this, you know, the infinite liberation narrative. And, yeah, it was interesting, okay, so and yeah, so basically she was telling me recently how in how she went to the USSR in 1979. She chaperoned a group of elite school children, teenagers and whatnot, to go to Mother Russia. Well, not Mother Russia. Apparently, she said she went to Azerbaijan, Georgia, the home of Stalin, and like all the spots. And because like she ran into her old Russian teacher at university, and when she was telling me this, I was like, I bet your teacher loved Stalin, didn't she? And she was like, whoa. And it's like, oh my God, I love you so much, but I hate what this fucking liberation narrative complex has fucking done to you. You know, I don't know. Anyway, be mindful. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Yeah?
Don't need bail. What? What's the problem? She's one of the leaders of redefining the police. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But she's from California. And what did California do yesterday? California Senate passed a contentious bill.
That was after they jerked off a couple of cats and then sacrificed a dog.
To allow undocumented immigrants to use the state's zero down, zero interest home loans program. With 23 votes for and 11 against, including all 9 Republicans, California's Dream for All shared appreciation loans. The program allows to secure loans up to $150,000 or 20% of the home's purchase price, or about what a typical down payment is. With zero down payment, this state loan, and zero payments. In exchange, the state receives the original loan amount plus 20% of the appreciated gain when the home is refinanced, sold, or transferred. This is absolutely incredible. Now, why would you do this? Well, because you're trying to collapse the system. This is Cloward and Pivot. There is no rhyme or reason we would do this for illegal aliens, and we wouldn't do this for our veterans. We don't do this for our poorest in the country. Why would you do it for illegal aliens? Have you seen what's going on around the country, around the world? German Chancellor, he's up for election. He's one of the guys who has just let everybody into Germany. He's now promising swifter deportations because he has an election coming up. And there was in a western city of Germany, there was a really bad stabbing, a mass stabbing in the city, and everybody's like, enough is it?
3 people, 3 souls.
Enough. Enough is enough. So he promised swifter enforcement of deportation rules. Now, what does that mean? Well, the guy who did the mass stabbing, he was supposed to be deported long ago. Does any of this sound familiar, America? So he came out and he said, you know what, this is a real problem now, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Exactly what Kamala Harris is doing.
Come dumpster
We're going to get to the bottom of this, and you know what? Because crime is so bad right now, I'm not only going to have swifter enforcement of deportation, but I'm also going to put into that bill tougher weapons laws. Oh, we have a problem with stabbings. So are you now going to ban knives?
Well, fucking hell. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. Homie. It's crazy.
To do, Chancellor. So he, of course,
Chancellor.
Of course, was very, very moved by called very moving accounts of emergency first service workers who tended the victims, and he was furious, and he would not let this tear apart the German society. This is terrorism, and it's threatening all of our lives, our coexistence, and our way of life. That is also what the people who plan and carry out such attacks always intended, and it is something we will never accept. We're going to coexist. Well, you cannot coexist with people that don't want to coexist with you.
No.
Now, Harris has flip-flopped on the border. She is coming out now, but she's flip-flopped on everything. Okay? Apparently, because she's not answering any questions yet, she does not support electric car mandates anymore. She has backed these for a decade. She has been for open borders for a decade. And she's now against them? Why? What changed in you? Senate Democrats are now virtually certain to pass a Supreme Court reform. This, according to Sheldon Whitehouse, he's a senator. This is unbelievable. They are planning a package and stopping the filibuster, and then passing a bill that includes permanent reproductive rights, permanent restored voting rights, getting rid of corrupting billionaire dark money, and Supreme Court reform, all in one bill as soon as they're reelected.
Oh no.
How? Why? Why would you do this in California? You don't care. It doesn't matter if Harris gets in or not. They'll burn the frickin' country down. And if you pay attention, please pay attention to what is happening in Europe. and in England, because it's the same thing. They're just a little ahead of us. We cannot have another radical president. And not that Joe Biden was radical. He wasn't doing anything. You hired the machine. When you voted for Joe Biden, you didn't vote for him as president or her as vice president. You had two willing puppets that I don't know who is calling the shots, but it is not Joe Biden.
That's a theory. That's a fucking theory, homie. That is a theory. See, the thing is, it's like, you get a crotchety old man who's like, da-da-da, blah, 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 blah. You don't see the evil between their eyes anymore. You know what I mean? Like, but I know this, man. Like, I've seen crotchety old fucking gentle, peaceful old men, and it's like, dude, were you a partisan? You know what I mean? Like, did you kill fascists gleefully and happily during the war? You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, the only reason why you don't know that Joe Biden is part of the KKK is because of fucking... He could be the fucking Grand Wizard, for all we know. Just use a voice modulator and that's all he needs, you know. Fucking Demo KKK rats. Don't fucking buy that shit. Joe Biden is fucking the worst. While fucking, you know, Grey Obama was fucking dancing around like a house nigger. Fucking, Joe Biden was there going, can we press the button yet? Can we blow up some more brown people yet? Please let me blow up some more brown people. I love blowing up brown people. You know. The only people they want is fucking yellow people. Fucking yellow. You know. All those fucking terrorists. All the fucking jihadis. They're fucking yellow. Look how they fucking run and hide when the fucking game comes to them. And watch how these fucking rats run for the Canadian border once this shit is over. The fucking Minnesota-Canada pipeline. You know. Thank Christ. Well, fuck, I hope Canada just doesn't have fucking nuclear weapons. Fucking, I hope they do. They got poutine bombs. Not proton bombs, poutine bombs.
How is it that he is so out of control, he doesn't know his own name practically, and yet everything in the country is running on schedule? How's that possible? Why does nobody want to invoke the 25th Amendment? So Harris was asked by volunteers, campaign volunteers, can you give us any policy details to share with voters? No. No.
Nah, nigga, nah.
They've been rebuffed. The people trying to tell people what she stands for, they can't get anything from her or the campaign on what she stands for. Now, maybe she's going to talk about it on Thursday. She's done her first interview. She's very excited about it. It's going to be a pre-tape. It'll happen tomorrow. And you know what's really great is she's such a team that she's going to have Tim Walz with her. You know, and that's not a man that could be there to talk for the little woman. No. She's not afraid of that. She wants to build up Tim Walz. Really? Methinks that you were trying to get somebody else to eat up at least half the airtime and be able to joke with you. Well, that's not what we really mean. Oh, no, that's not what we meant. No, you're right. It is crazy. If this woman, you know, I know a lot of people think that Donald Trump is not standing for abortion. And I get it, bothers me. Do you know what happens to the pro-life movement if she's elected? Do you have any idea?
You'll be able to go down to your local corner store and buy fucking baby fillets and shit, eh?
It's over. It is over. I have a guest on today. She's 89 years old. She was in a Russian prison camp. She never thought she would see it in the United States. Well, she's in prison. Why? Because she was pregnant. She's 89 years old. She told the producer, "I'm very nervous because I'm older and sometimes I forget my words." And our producer said, "Don't worry, Glenn will be very kind and gentle with you. Don't worry." She's like, "Okay, I'm just very nervous. I don't want to." We wouldn't allow anyone to prosecute the President of the United States for crimes because he was a sweet old man that sometimes got confused. But we'll put...
That's unconscionable. That is fucking wrong. And I mean, you have to understand, we are living under a system of political prisonership at this point. Don't think of it as any other way. You know what I mean? Like, these are hostages. Anyone who has the temerity to fucking say the truth and not the true fucking roof, it's fucking so bad, man. It's so bad.
Put her in jail for praying? Do you have any idea what happens to pro-life if Kamala Harris wins? Don't talk to me about Donald Trump. Talk to me about what the alternative is here. By the way, they care so deeply about you. It was the Harris-Biden administration that actually stopped the imports of baby formula when we were having a baby formula shortage. Do you know why? Well, some of the big dairy producers will have problems with it because we've got to put on hold some of those tariffs. Really? Really? You were more afraid of Big Cow than you were of the American people who are driving all over the state trying to find any baby formula? That was your priority. Yeah, that's their priority. I'm sorry, I hate coming on and just yelling at you. I hate those shows like this one that is from time to time that just come out and yell at you because you know you're just as frustrated as I am. But we have all got to get this out to every friend and neighbor. You have to put this stuff out. All of the stuff that I just talked about is in our daily newsletter. It's free. Take those stories and send them to everyone you know. They have to know this. And the media is going to do it. It's really up to you. And I want you to know, let me give you some hope in that. Oh, it's up to me. Okay, well, I've got enough to do. Yeah, but all you have to do is your share, and you will do more than your share by doing your share. I'm up here in the Mountain West, and so I'm learning all about animals and horses and everything else. And draft horses. A strong draft horse can pull 8,000 pounds. Now, how much can 2 draft horses pull? You would think maybe 1,600 pounds. No. When 2 of them get together, they can pull between 20,000 and 24,000 pounds. What?
Yeah, that's interesting.
You can get draft horses if you have 3, it goes up into like 35,000 pounds.
That's total. It's physics. It's physics. Yeah, I'm gonna learn about that.
They pull more than their weight by themselves. When you put them together, if you have two draft horses that are in sync, that have been taught together, okay, and so they work together and they're in sync, but one can pull 8,000 pounds, two can pull about 22,000 pounds, and if they can work together, if they were taught together, they pull about 30,000 pounds. We think alike. We have to work together. We can get this done. But in Pennsylvania, they start voting in 2 weeks. How many people know these things about Kamala Harris?
A lot more than you realize.
There's a reason she's not giving an interview, and now she's not giving one alone. But let me tell you who her running mate.
Imagine the debate when she turns up with Tim Walz, like, surgically attached to her. She like gets his brain transplanted into the side of her head or something. And she's like, no, this is me. I've always had Tim Walz's brain attached to my genitals.
May is. Oh, you think you know? Oh, well, I'm very, very excited for Tim Walz because he is just the other side of the Oreo cookie, and socialism is the white stuff in between. Effective in Minnesota, July 2025, teaching licensing rules passed last year in Minnesota under Tim Walz will ban practicing Christians, Jews, and Muslims from teaching in public schools. That is, if they believe it. You know, if you're a Christian and you don't really believe it, you're just like, yeah, I'm a Christian, I guess. Then you don't have a problem. This guy who is as a high school social studies teacher sponsored a student queer sex club in 1999. So he was a pioneer in this field. Starting next July, Minnesota agencies controlled by Walz appointees will require teacher license applicants to affirm transgenderism and race Marxism. If you don't, you cannot get a teaching license. You cannot work in Minnesota public schools, nor in private schools, where you also have to have a license. The latest version of the regulations require teachers to affirm students' gender identity and sexual orientation to receive a teacher's license. The teacher fosters an environment that ensures student identifies such as race, ethnicity, national origin, language, sex.
How about punk rockers? How about hip hoppers? How about free thinkers? How about lovely people? You know, how about lovers? You ain't allowed to be a lover. Minnesota says no to lovers. We'll fucking just move the Lakers and the lovers out to fucking the West Coast.
Gender identity, sexual orientation, physical, developmental, emotional ability, socioeconomic class, and religious beliefs are historically and socially contextualized, affirmed, and incorporated into a learning environment where students are empowered.
Learning. Earning. Yearning. Burning. Churning. There ain't no learning going the fuck on here.
Okay, so last spring, administrative law judges in Minnesota approved these changes. The Federalist reported 1 month before they were finalized, universities will be affected starting in 2025. They have to train their teaching students to fulfill these anti-Christian requirements or be banned from offering state licensing. So, you know, if you want to be a teacher in Minnesota, you must hold the line. Now, here's the disappointing part of this. Some Christian universities in the state will obey these regulations. Of course. Yeah, you hear the Jews in the trains going by, just sing louder. Some Christian universities will not. But so far, the Christian universities that the press has reached out to plan on disobeying these state commands to violate their faith, would do so quietly, and only sue when the state fines and punishes them. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I think that's what Jesus taught. I think that's what he taught. I think that's what he meant when, he was talking and saying, whoever confesses me before men, I will also confess before the Father. Whoever denies me before men, I'm going to deny him too. So I think that he was talking about only confess him, once you're caught. Once you're caught, then you're like, whoa. If Christians do not stand up now, it is only going to get harder. If you don't stand up now for life, and even if Donald Trump says one thing, you know what Harris will do. She's the first vice president or president to ever go to an abortion clinic. She loves death. If Christians do not stand up now, you will repeat. You will repeat the past. I refuse to do that.
I refuse
Join
to
me.
lose.
Come on, draft horse.
Refuse
Join
to
me.
lose.
Pull your weight, and together we pull much more than our weight.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's straight physics. It's straight physics. And not like, I mean, like it's up and down.
I have some tour dates to tell you about.
Okay, so The Hill, White Fragility author Robin DiAngelo exposed. White Fragility author Robert DiAngelo exposed as plagiarist. Surprise, fucking surprise. Who did she plagiarize? Marx? Engels? Fucking Voltaire? Rousseau?
At the University of Washington, where she received her PhD in multicultural. Robin DiAngelo is an infamous anti-racism scholar and the author of the book White Fragility. As a white woman, she...
Notably, she didn't come through with the next one. Fucking, black cocks and pink socks or whatever.
is outspoken about her belief in crediting minorities. But now she's been accused of plagiarism. In an accountability statement posted on her website, DiAngelo says, quote, fellow white people must always cite and give credit to the work of BIPOC people who have informed your thinking. But according to a complaint filed last week at the University of Washington, where she received her PhD in multicultural education, she plagiarized many scholars, including 2 minorities. Now, according to the Washington Free Beacon, DiAngelo's doctoral thesis, Whiteness in Racial Dialogue, a Discourse Analysis, that sounds like riveting reading,
AKA black cocks and pink socks.
It takes 2 paragraphs from Asian American professor Thomas Nakayama without correct attribution. She does not include quotation marks or in-text citations. The Free Beacon also reports that she took material from Asian American professor Stacey Lee, summarizing the work of scholar David Theo Goldberg. Joining us now to discuss is Aaron Sibarium, a writer at the Washington Free Beacon, who broke this story, got a lot of attention on social media. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Robbie.
So I think our viewers understand the importance, the influence of Robin DiAngelo. This is a figure who has gotten actually a lot of mockery from kind of all sides of the political spectrum, I would say, in recent years for her kind of racial obsession. The white people should be trying to exorcise the demon that is racism from their bodies in almost like a quasi-religious way. But now it turns out, give us the scope of how bad it is that some of her writing on this topic was actually plagiarized from minority scholars, the very thing that she says is like a cardinal sin.
Yeah, so there have obviously been a lot of plagiarism allegations in the past year, many of them against DEI officials. And her plagiarism falls, I would say, on the more severe half of the continuum. It's not the worst that I've seen, but it's pretty bad. It's more extensive. Certainly, the passages are longer than I think any of the passages at issue in, say, Claudine Gay's work. In some cases, she borrows 2-3 paragraphs in a row from other scholars without any kind of in-text attribution. Most of the people are cited in her bibliography, but that's not really a defense to plagiarism. You have to actually make clear which words are your own and which words are your sources, and she manifestly fails to do that on dozens of occasions throughout this dissertation.
The one success is that she's done what many doctoral scholars don't do, and that's have people read her thesis and her work. Can you tell us how you came to this story, Aaron?
There was a complaint, I obtained it, and then I looked at the examples, verified them myself. And look, I've obviously, the Free Vegan has been interested in D'Angelo for a while, all the way back in 2020. We did a lot of reporting on how she made her money, the lack of evidence for the kinds of training she does. One of my favorite stories that my former colleague Charles Lehman wrote was about how she actually was paid more than a Black woman for speaking at an anti-racist diversity training. She made almost twice as much as the Black speaker for just basically showing up and lecturing the audience about their racism. I think that the charlatanism has been a focus of ours for a while, and this was kind of just sort of the proverbial chef's kiss, as it were, in reporting against D'Angelo.
Yeah, I just looked up the last time I wrote about Robin DiAngelo for Reason was in this training video of hers that surfaced, in which she refers to the famous painting, The Creation of Adam, one of those famous works of Renaissance art, as epitomizing white supremacy, and she actually mistakes Adam for David, the biblical figure David. So it's really good. So that was not a plagiarized view. That was just one of her own. This is someone who, as you point, has made a lot of money. Is like the leader, maybe in the top 3 names in this field of anti-racism seminars and talks. She's just paid insane amounts of money to give presentations in educational settings, in some corporate settings.
So she basically gets paid fucking mucho grandiose to fucking rub her clit with her genital brains.
He charges by the minute is astronomical because she portrays herself as this expert on this topic. So it really does. It's not just a gotcha to say that she misattributed her sources or didn't do that correctly or didn't put. Maybe that can sound trivial to people, but you have to. Journalists, scholars, everyone were expected to, if you're directly quoting someone, you put it in quotes and you say who it's from. You have to paraphrase. You have to be careful if you're just, taking large chunks of text from somewhere else and making sure it's done appropriately. And the previous president of Harvard University, who resigned after Claudine Gay, after a lot of her mistakes were pointed out, I think that was absolutely fair. And this is. As you say, this is somewhat even more extensive, someone who is even more predominantly in a kind of education and scholarship role. It speaks to the intellectual bankruptcy of what she's doing.
Yeah, and I would emphasize too.
And interestingly, D'Angelo. I don't fucking know. These fucking people's, just how acerbic and disgusting the rhetoric that they fucking spread. And it's not even their fucking steves, man. Gross, fucking gross.
the PhD credential is really central to her marketing, right? Her website is literally titled Robin DiAngelo, PhD, and it repeatedly references her academic credentials. It says that the term white fragility was coined by DiAngelo in a 2011 academic paper. In fact, it was actually coined in her dissertation, right? So her entire career basically flows from this dissertation, even though it's obviously not as well known as her best-selling books. So the complaint is in essence calling into question.
So she had another really good one called Cockheads and Dirtbreads. Cockheads and Dirtbreads.
The legitimacy of the credential on which she has built her career and through which she has made millions of dollars.
Yeah, I'm a victim of the American graduate school industrial complex. Everyone who's had a life free of academic writing or reading, congratulations, but if you look at this, and the comparisons that you provide on the Free Beacon are quite good because you highlight the words in red that are used by these minority scholars and then the words used by DiAngelo. It's a lot of words. It's not just that she read these authors' work and provided a summary. It's a copy, paste, change a few words situation. And so as someone who's been an advocate, DiAngelo, saying if you use ideas from BIPOC scholars, cite them. And there were citations, but there is something egregious about this copy, paste, change a few words approach that Robin DiAngelo seemingly took. Can you just speak to how egregious this was? I'm sure you had other examples that you didn't include in the article to keep it brief, because the few that are in there are just really shocking how many exact phrases are the same. But is there more?
There is more, and you can you can read the complaint. The full complaint has more. I would say the ones in the article are probably the worst. But yeah, it doesn't end with the ones in the article. In some cases, she'll do this thing where she will credit the people in text, but she won't put quotation marks around the words. So she makes it seem like she's paraphrasing when in fact she's really copying the language verbatim. The other thing you'll notice about the examples we did highlight is that she often just changes one or two words, and that actually makes it worse than if she had simply copied verbatim, because if you copy it verbatim with no alterations, it might just be that you forgot to put the citation or the quotation marks, you were rushing, copy and pasting. It's plausible. When you change a couple words, though, that shows mens rea. That shows that you knew what you were doing and were actively trying to disguise it by making just a few token alterations. So that actually, I think, makes it far worse than if she had just literally copied and pasted verbatim. And the other thing you notice is that in some of the passages, she is basically just using summaries that
This is clown world, yeah? Some fucking smooth criminal like this fucking pulls a paper out of her ass before, and yet legitimate academia gets fucking run off campus and has to do fucking dark tube, It's fucking crazy. It's crazy gravy.
Another author used.
Stop eating the crazy gravy.
Author. So it makes it look like she's summarizing, the primary source directly, but what she's actually doing is copying from an unacknowledged secondary source. So it looks like she's citing her work, but she's actually not, which is kind of devious, and it also presents almost a discrete kind of academic dishonesty, because what she's in essence doing is she's basically putting one scholar's words in the mouth of another without saying that that's what she's doing, right? She's making it seem like she's summarizing an author when she's actually relying on a third author's gloss of the original. So all of that it speaks to what is at best a pattern of real sloppiness, and at worst, I think a pattern of serial deception for average reservation.
Aaron, great story. Thanks, as always, for your terrific reporting. I know a lot of our viewers were having a laugh at this one. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Like, either you think he purposely shot that
Quentin Tarantino on Alec
or you
Baldwin.
think he didn't purposely shoot her, and if he didn't purposely shoot her, then it's all bullshit. Am I wrong?
Quentin Tarantino
it's a
smoking a
situation,
pipe.
I think I'm being fair
Motherfucker.
enough to say that the armorer is 90, the guy who has the gun, an armorer is 90% responsible for everything that happens when it comes to that gun.
If not
100%. But the actor is 10% responsible.
Okay.
The actor's 10% responsible. It's not just, it's a gun. You are a partner in the responsibility to some degree.
Well, so what do you do to test it?
They show it to you. You go. If there's steps to go through, you go through them, and you do it. And and it's done with due diligence, and you know it's fucking for real. All right. And so, like, okay, here's how an actor can handle it. I'm not talking about
Well,
that situation.
what should he have done? Looked into the barrel, or like shot it one? I mean, you can't like shoot it because then you're using
If
it.
he went through the steps that he's supposed to go through, then
What are the steps?
Well, it's like, okay, so that you see the barrel is clear. They show you that the barrel is clear, that there's not anything wedged in between the barrel. You actually show you the barrel. All right, you look at they show it to you the barrel, and then they show you some version of like, here are our blanks. These are the blanks, and then here's the gun. Boom. Now you're ready to go. You get ready for 2, or it's ready for 3.
What Tarantino doesn't fucking know is that their armorer was a fucking green thumb. Was a fucking totally green. A fucking Nepo baby. Yeah? Like, the Mile Higher podcast did a really important expose about this. The Mile Higher podcast, really worth checking out. Good Colorado kids. Yeah, their expose of the whole Alec Baldwin thing was amazing. I ain't wasting more time on these two fucking dickheads. And I mean, nigga just said, armor is 90%, actors 10%. Then how are you gonna? You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking internal non-logic. Okay, PC culture, comedy, and our trans marriage. Jim and Nikki Norton. Okay. I'm a buy.
Guys that preach politics, comics, shut the fuck up. They use the word platform. It's just tedious. Shut your face.
I just don't care about the pronoun thing. If you're not gonna call me a she on automatic, then my mission has failed. So, yeah.
I think part of the reason people say, what's your preferred pronoun? How do you want to be referred to so I don't get fucking fired?
I thought I was gonna have this surgery, and me now would never say that. Which I'm so happy that I live in a day and age where I'm not castrated.
Me too.
Give it some time. That's really what I can tell these trans people. You should give it extra time. Give it 10 years.
So thank you for coming on the show, guys. People say that this is the golden era of comedy. Now, obviously, Nikki, you're a lot younger than Jim. But Jim, do you agree with that? Is this the golden era of comedy that we're in?
I don't know. Everyone thinks that they're in the golden era. Like, everyone thinks this is the time. There's a lot of bad comedy now, too. Like, there's a lot of great comedy and a lot of but there's also a lot of shit comedy. So I don't know if it's any more the golden era than the 70s with Pryor and Carlin. So I don't know.
Martin.
Maybe.
I'm not a comedian, but I think it's past us. Because now you have to be more careful when you make jokes.
Yep.
That's interesting. So you think that you have to be more careful? Do
Yes.
you feel that as a trans woman? Do you feel
Yes.
that? Really? You feel that you have to be more careful. I thought because being trans, you'd be like, oh, you know what, you can say, I can say anything.
Yes.
He can't because he's a straight white man.
Yes.
Questionable.
I feel like I can say
I don't see gender.
Yes, I feel like I can say the F word.
You can see, so you can say the F word, but you can't.
I'm trying to work out which F word at this point.
But
She calls me.
Comedic jokes, I think you have to be a lot more careful to not come off as, you know, I don't know, like canceled, racist, I don't know, things like that.
Do you think that's making comedy better or worse?
Well, I think when you mute the language, I think automatically for me it gets worse. Because then it's like, I don't know, it's just not as real. And you're kind of watching, it's like watching news. I feel like you're watching everyone be careful. And I don't enjoy that.
It's so interesting you mentioned that because we talk about, on this show, we talked about that a hell of a lot because it's less the case, I think, here in the US. Like every time we come here, I go to a club, I'm like, if you did that in the UK, you would be arrested. Right? But still, like, there is a culture of sensitivity.
Yes.
And it is quite frustrating to watch people kind of muzzle themselves.
It's not real. I mean, the people aren't really sensitive, they're just pretending.
Well,
it's just watching people act in a play. And that's become like the new way to get attention. So people just look for attention.
And also being Norwegian from Norway, I feel like we don't take things as serious there, at least not as much as America.
Norwegian,
When I
of course.
first came here, I was like, oh, I better watch what I say here, because people can get really offended. And I feel like it's a little different in Norway, but the whole world is kind of leeching off of the US anyway, so I think gradually it's probably.
Well, I always say, like, whatever America flushes down the toilet, we get served for breakfast in Europe the next day. So it's starting to feel like that a little bit.
It's true.
But interesting that you say that. So you think Norway is more free when it comes to speech than it is.
But I do also feel like it's getting worse, like it is everywhere. I feel like it's getting worse in Norway. I feel like everyone is like watching a play. I watch the news and I watch, oh, you're so careful. It's like I can see through it. And it's just not reality to me. It's like you're doing it.
Well, transparent people like us, we always see through the facade, no? The problem is so many people wearing fucking protective masks think that they're protecting themselves from nobody.
Your job and you just, you know, that's it.
Yeah, like someone makes a joke, and then okay, now you'll do your job, which is to get angry about it, tweet about it.
Yeah.
Now you're doing your part in this whole.
It's all a charade.
It's a charade, yeah. It's none of that. But it hasn't been real forever. It's just more people now. You can see how pretend everybody.
And also in Norway, there have been like jokes with blackface and even saying the N-word on PBS without it being like banned. So I just think the history is very different, at least in Norway, than what it would be here. I mean, you rap along to a song and you have the N-word in it, and being Norwegian, you wouldn't even think about that. But here it's like they would kill you and cancel you for that.
Well, in the UK, there was a girl whose friend was killed in a car accident. Chelsea Russell's her name. And she shared the lyrics of his favourite song, which happened to be a rap song, on her Instagram, had the N-word in it. She was prosecuted and convicted.
It's crazy.
Right?
For what?
For hate speech.
Oh,
and then that was eventually overturned appeal. But that was like, imagine that girl's life. She's like 18 years old or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And the guy who wrote it was not prosecuted. The guy who wrote the song was fine. The radio station that played it
It's
was
like
not prosecuted.
with the trans women too, they're like, oh, he called me a man, and like they can go to court with that as a hate speech crime, and I'm like, I think that's ridiculous. I watched this trans woman, she's deliberately calling me a man. That is a crime. And I'm like, wow, who gives a shit? I mean, you're trans, you are what you want to be. Isn't that it? Like, isn't that what we rooted for this whole time? And now we have it. We can legally change whatever we want in the Western world, at least.
Yeah, every discourtesy, every act of rudeness doesn't have to be legislated by the government. It doesn't have to be a court appearance because somebody's an asshole. Sometimes people are just assholes and we have to accept the fact that people are assholes.
Do you know, we seem, I guess it's the power of the internet now where people feel like because words travel further. Like in the past, the guy in the bar calling you a man, you know, whatever. Now it sort of feels like they're calling you a man to hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
And whether it's true or not, you know, is a side issue, like because it's offensive, therefore now we have to legislate being an asshole out of existence.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they're going to bring this into court. I mean, for what? It's so unimportant to me if a random stranger were to call me a man. I mean, I don't know why these girls care, or be female to
They can't because I'm a fucking woman. Respect my pronouns. Not like this queen. Nikki, Jim and Nikki Norton. Fucking Jim Norton, what a fucking gangster, yo.
nails.
But
Yes.
the narrative, Nikki, is that you come from an oppressed minority. You know, every Norwegians, exactly. When the reality is, you raped my ancestors, and I want a fucking apology.
Yeah.
You know, but let's move on from that.
Now this episode's now demonetized.
Yeah,
Excellent.
exactly. Even though it's history. But so the narrative is that you need to be protected. You're vulnerable. You're a minority. Let's protect you. Why do you disagree with that?
Just because I feel like 10 years ago, when I was a boy and I was starting to find out what it would be like to transition, there was zero information on this. None. I could only find the ladyboys in Thailand online. So for me to just live this in existence, 10 years, which is a relatively short time, in real life and be married and have a husband, that's really all that matters to me. And I think that's kind of why I don't care about these, like the legislation. I just think it's ridiculous. And we're not there yet. I don't think you should ever be fined for calling anyone a him. I mean,
But the person who's saying like, yeah, you're an oppressed minority, I have to. The person doing that is putting themselves normally in a position of being better than or above. It's just kind of condescending.
And she's got
and
Farrah
it's really
Fawcett
betrayal.
hair.
And it's
Total Farrah Fawcett hair. Damn.
thing people do, they pretend to check their privilege, but it's a really sneaky way. A lot of times people want to hold on to what they have, so they throw breadcrumbs and they act like, we'll scold you for saying this, but nothing is really going to change. It's all fake.
It is all fake, and the thing that I find frustrating is it's one thing if people from the particular group or minority go, hey, listen, that's not cool, and let me explain why I think it's not cool. And then you go, okay, I'll listen. But if it's like an outraged white woman going, hey, you shouldn't say this, you're like, fuck off, it's nothing to do with you.
yeah. I also legally couldn't change my name or gender until 2013, which is not that long ago. So I feel like the world as a whole with this trans stuff has just exploded and it's through the roof. I feel like all these complaints, I don't care. You're all living your life. You all change your gender. You're all under the hormones. You can do whatever you want. The rest is unimportant to me. I couldn't care less.
That's so true, because I think with the trans debate, there's a lot of legitimate conversations about women's sports and other things where I think there's genuine reasons for people to be concerned.
Yeah.
But I've always said this, like, most normal trans people just want to be left the fuck alone, just like the rest of them.
Yes.
I've never met one trans person who is, and I don't know comics, not one who is as sensitive as people are on Twitter. Not one who's a comic, not one who was just a non-comic. Like, and I've met a lot of trans people, and none of them have been that hypersensitive or lack a sense of humor or been so breakable and fragile as people are on Twitter.
And all these comments are like, it's a he, it's a boy, and it's like, it's just noise. It's just, who cares?
I find it irritating if they come on our page and do that, but it's not. Oh my God, it's like, fuck you.
I don't
You're just
care.
being a dick. You know, you're like going on someone's YouTube channel and just making a statement because your pretend character online is you're the guy who tells it like it is. But you're not the guy who tells it like it is. You're the guy with the profile with no real photo.
I know this fucking shit fucking inside out, man. Total fucking paper tigers.
Tends to be the guy who tells it like it is and then goes back to living his life.
Do you feel like it made me gay? Marrying me? Marrying me in
That's the greatest thing I've ever done.
out and open?
What were you doing before?
I would just ask guys, did you put a dress on, sir?
Make me feel less guilty.
No, it's not. I'm not gay, but but it doesn't. It's not straight. I mean, there's no way you have a dick in your face and you're straight.
Yes.
As a guy, if you tell yourself that, I think you're just playing into the 1950s notion that heterosexual is the only right answer.
And every single man who's been with me has eventually led to the cock. So I do believe that's also that it can't be straight. If you have a
I don't
fuck,
understand. I don't understand the obsession guys have. Maybe there's some cases where I just don't understand the obsession people have with making it a hetero activity. If your man is a dick, stop it. Like, what do you need to tell yourself to feel okay about what you're doing? Why is the word hetero and straight so important to people? It's silly.
But it also took you a long time, I think, to be out in this public.
Only because it took you a while to get in the country. Like, I was comfortable. I've been talking about this stuff, for 20 years on the radio and in stand up and joking about it, but telling people for 20 years. I mean,
What were you saying?
just joking about, at first it started where like in 2003, where I would pretend I didn't know. Like that's, like, oh, I didn't know, and then I was fucking her and I saw the dick. I knew, I mean, of course I knew. But that's your way of just talking about something that doesn't get talked about in 2003. And then as time goes on, you just start to say like, yeah, I like this girl, she's hot, she's trans, and all the trans porn stars that would come in to the radio show. And there was some that I had hooked up with, and I would admit hooking up with them. So it was like anything else. You talk about it more and more, and you get more comfortable talking about it as the culture gets more.
Jim Norton's totally a tranny chaser. I had no idea. That's amazing.
Comfortable with it, I guess.
I think the issue comes in is when you start to mix sexuality with politics. When things start to be politicized, when people start seeing who they are as the most important thing about them, and then they start to see everything through that lens. When the reality is, if you're gay, and that is the most interesting thing about you, or you're black, and that's the most interesting thing about you, then you're a boring person.
Yeah, that's the one thing you hang your hat on, is that like, I'm trans, or I'm this, or I'm that. But it's like, it doesn't really, as long as we can live our lives the way we want to, I don't, people can say what the fuck they want, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not obsessed with people liking us or accepting, I don't care if people accept it or not.
I have to say though, as far as America punishes people with what you say sometimes, I feel like it's the best place to be trans right now, especially being from Norway. Maybe it's because I feel more exposed being Norwegian in Norway, but I feel like people are much more conservative there, and I've been to like 10 countries. I really feel like America is the most accepting and the most non-caring when it comes to me being me. Well, maybe not in like Alabama,
I was going to interject there, Nikki, because I think, I don't know if it's the most accepting, I think it's the most we don't care country. It's
exactly.
like, live your life the way you want, and I think that's kind of the basis of this country, it's how it was built, really.
Yeah.
So, in the spirit of not giving folk, let me ask you, Jim, did you marry a trans woman just so no one would talk about the age gap?
No, because I said I would not marry anybody who was trans if they were closer than 25 years. That was on the application. If there was anybody born before 97 was not even considered. If you knew who Black Sabbath was, I wouldn't fuck you.
Jim is older than my dad.
I'm 29 years older, and it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But that at times will be the thing in our relationship that causes us to fight. Every transgender is never like that's. It's like with most couples, there's a big age difference. Life experience and what I want and what her generation thinks, that will sometimes cause an argument.
So what are, not to start an argument here on set, but like I'm curious what that generational gap, how does that manifest itself?
A lot of times in musical taste, in what we want to do, and the things that we find interesting.
Such as I was saving up with my own money, because I'm doing cameos now, and I was saving up, and he got mad at me because I wanted to save up for a gaming computer. And I mean, unnecessarily mad, scolding mad. Like, you're so stupid, you want to waste that money on a gaming computer? And I'm like, yeah, I want a gaming computer.
I have one.
Yeah, I didn't say you're so stupid. Well, I just wasn't happy. I was like, why aren't you thinking about like a sofa? It was almost like, why are you thinking about a computer and not getting a sofa, even though I wouldn't know what you pay for it anyway?
I wanted that computer.
It's interesting then, but that I think goes to the very core of this, which is a generational gap.
She's totally got a bigger dick than him as well, I can totally tell.
Actually, is far more relevant than a gap, than talking about sexuality or gender or race, because that has far more of an impact in our lives, thankfully, than race, gender and sexuality, because there are people from previous generations who fought, and some of them given their lives, so we can enjoy this.
Yeah,
Agreed. Nikki, we spoke a little bit about this when we were talking about child transition, and this is something that I find really interesting because in the UK we've had the CAS report where it's a lot of gender clinics. It has been shown that they've not been giving kids the required support, and there's actually something that I agree with, said that you should be giving puberty blockers to kids who are prepubescent and young kids. Where do you stand on this?
So I started when I was like 14, 15, and even back then, for me personally, being a teenager at that time, I felt the clock ticking. I'm like, if I get this beard, the dysphoria was real to me. I felt in my heart that the clock was ticking and I wanted to be on these hormones ASAP. In Norway, however, though, you can't just go to a doctor and get hormones. You gotta be referred by a psychiatrist to the national hospital, and then they have to evaluate you.
So she's full on true scum. Peace out to the true scum!
The most interesting part, you have to live and show it to them 1 year as the opposite gender in order for them to even consider you as a valid trans person. I think it's right. I kind of love that they did that. So I don't know, you gotta have a team of people to evaluate you, I think, an endocrinologist. I don't think you can just be 12 years old and start on hormones by some doctor. I think there should be a team.
You don't think a male prisoner should be able to say, I'm a woman now, and get sent to a woman's prison?
No, I've heard that happen.
It does.
Well, that's really difficult, isn't it? Because we had this case in the UK, we had several cases in the UK where actually rapists said, well, I'm a woman now.
Yeah.
And they were put in a women's prison.
Crazy.
But then, and the issue is always difficult because, well, obviously they shouldn't be in a women's prison. But I'm not saying this won't happen to you, but if you were to be convicted of a crime, where should you go?
Well, I look at it this way. I have a mental illness diagnosis given to me by the government of Norway. So I believe that it's called transgenderism, F.64 or something. It's an actual mental illness. And I believe all trans people should have that diagnosis. I sincerely mean that.
So you think that being transgender is a mental illness?
Yes.
Interesting.
You're not the first person to have said that, including several trans people on that show.
I wouldn't say yes 5 years ago, being young, whatever, but 110%.
So what's changed your mind?
Just because you realize that if depression can be a mental illness and classified as that, then how the hell is this not? How is the dysphoria that I felt in my heart at 14 so real to me? How is that not a mental?
That said, a lot of fucking these trannies coming through now, they don't have dysphoria. They have fucking penis envy or fucking autogynephilia. Are they mental illnesses? Sure. Are they, forensically pathological? Probably. But dysphoria, yeah, I don't know, man. As someone who's been through dysphoria, I fucking know, I know, man.
So, illness. How is that not something going on in the brain and in my system? It's 110% something physical.
So when you say dysphoria, can you explain, because there's a lot of people who thankfully have never suffered gender dysphoria. We both know people who have, and it sounds awful. What is that like to have gender dysphoria?
Like if your skin feels like a man's skin, if you feel stubble, if the hair is short, yeah, that would give you real dysphoria.
And what does that mean to give you real dysphoria?
Because I can just tell you, I'd rather be dead than live life as a man. I really sincerely mean that. If I was just a man, I would think that. I don't know how I would operate. I don't know how I would be a man. Yes. Only in Jim's mouth. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that it would be terrible if I lived life as a man. And ever since I was this young, I walked like this, with gay hand. Could you say that I was just gay? Yeah, but then when the dysphoria hit me, it's just, I don't know. I've been wearing heels since I was 5, 6. It's definitely something there, and it's not just me. All these other trans people, it's the same thing. So I believe that the world really understands it. Even the National Hospital in Norway, I don't think they perfected what this is yet. But as far as their work on me or whatever, I think it's the most reasonable to get evaluated.
Well, it's clearly worked with you, and this is kind of one of the issues with this issue being so politicized, because what's happened is there are people like you for whom it's exactly the right way to go, and it works out. But there are also people who kind of get sucked into it because they have some other kind of mental issues.
And then they get the surgeries.
Right.
The bottom surgery, oh my god, it's crazy. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't even get top surgery, just because I feel like, well, that for me wouldn't be very natural. Now I'm putting on this caricature of this person, this woman. I want to try to do it my way and be who I, give it some time. That's really what I can tell these trans people. You should give it extra time. And I thought I had no time in the world when I transitioned.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who think they're transgender.
Gotta
and
give
aren't.
it time.
There's people who think they're something and then it turns out, oh, I'm not that.
And 10 years ago, at the National Hospital, if I'm not mistaken, would castrate you if you wanted to transition. Which I'm so happy that I live in a day and age where I'm not castrated. But there's also a weird thing with being trans because I love my dick. Does that make me trans? Some people could say no. Trans people do, because there's so different levels. Or does it just make me a she-male? I thought I was gonna have the surgery, and me now would never say that.
And I think that's the core of it, which is...
So what's the difference between trans and a she-male? Intersex? Who's to say?
that young people are being pushed into having these surgeries,
Oh, yeah.
into having these...
Because it's the norm.
Yes.
So I thought I was gonna get the facial feminization surgery and the pussy. I'm so fucking happy I didn't get that pussy.
Imagine if you had told me you were going to, and now I'm just hearing this for the first time. What?
Yeah, but that I gave that time, and if I didn't, maybe I would be sitting here with a boxed up vagina that I would feel terrible about. It's not real. It's just not real to me. I'm sorry, I just can't comprehend it. It's not.
The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra
Yeah,
has
don't
everything
afford
you
it.
need
Yeah.
to prepare that butt.
No. Okay. Bit of Tommy Rob.
And so how do you distinguish between the kind of immigration has brought you the people that you have had friendships with in Luton and the what is it? Is it the grooming gangs that's drawing the distinction? Like, what is it that you're trying to tell people about immigration, given that you also have friends from all sorts of different ethnic groups and races? And you're also denying any allegations of racism or even ethnic prejudice for that matter. And partly you point to the fact that your English Defence League had different groups of people in it, but also your own friendships. So what makes you convinced that you're not a far-right figure, and what is it specifically about immigration that you're trying to object to?
I'm not denying it. I'm actually hated by the far right. I'm despised as a race person. I made comments. So Angela Merkel, David Cameron, these were all the leaders at the time of the English Defence League. They all out and said multiculturalism's failed. I went on record as saying, actually, you're all cowards, yeah? Because what's failed, if we want to admit what's failed, Islam's failed. Yeah? Sikhism hasn't failed to integrate or assimilate into British society. The Jews haven't failed. Solutions haven't failed. Everyone else, they haven't failed. You are taking a problem that what's failed, and I just speak about my experience from growing up in Luton. And again, I'll set the record straight. Not every Muslim, okay? I'm not saying every Muslim. Some of the best people I've met growing up are Muslim. Some of the people I love and still have relationships are Muslim. But per se, Islam and the community of Islam have looked inward, they've created ghettos, and there is no integration. And I challenge any journalist, come to Luton and find me Muslims with non-Muslims. And every time when I was leaving Defence League and a journalist would come and interview me, I said, you walk through the town and you try and find me Muslims and non-Muslims. You won't find them. You'll have the Muslims and the non-Muslims. Now, we didn't create that. We can't be, on our school, I speak about when I grew up, it was the Muslim playground and the non-Muslim playground. So I grew up experiencing this. I experienced the separation and the segregation, the zero assimilation. And I knew something was very, very different. And until, I think in 2011, I was spending 22 weeks of solitary confinement. And I challenge again, anyone listening to do this. Take the Quran. I was sent in the Quran by a Muslim outreach organisation trying to convert me. So I took the Quran and thought, right, let's look at this. And I opened it, and I challenge any of you to do this. And every time it says, do not be friends with Christians or Jews, just write the verse number. You will have pages and pages of verse numbers. So then what you have is children being brought up. And if I brought my children up, all of us as white people brought our children up to do not be friends with black children, we would see hostility and violence sooner. When you have a superior ideology that teaches them they're better than people based on the colour of their skin or their faith, and that's what Islam is, it's a supremacist ideology. And all of a sudden, when I started dissecting this book, everything I'd seen my entire life growing up made sense. Everything. And these Muslims are being brought up to believe this, to believe that this is the word of God, that this is what they want. That's why we don't have a simple...
And they're not brought up to understand that, you know, their person, their prophet is of the same lineage as Abraham and Jesus, you know. And then the whole thing is, you know, they do say that the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament are the Word of God, but badly translated. You know what I mean? Like, whereas fucking 90% of the shit in the Quran is not prophecy. It's not. It's some fucking mean old fucking pedophile cunt fucking talking wise just because God spoke in his ear, you know, a couple of times. Fuck that noise.
Immigration or integration. So when I talk about the problems, I've only ever spoken. I haven't spoken against immigration, which is by people who are against total immigration. Quite currently, right now, I believe we need to end immigration. But the whole time I led the English Defence League, I said, no, I'm against Islamic immigration. And that's because you're mixing oil and water with work. And I can only speak from experience of what I've seen. The more
Okay, so why is it a problem? Let's assume that at least in part that your argument is valid and that you did experience the Muslim tendency in Luton to be more segregated compared to the other ethnic groups that you're describing. So I could say, well, that's okay. If people want to associate with their own kind as a consequence of their belief, that's part and parcel of a multicultural vision. And so why is it that you object to it? And why even do you have the temerity to object to it? People can associate with who they want. And so then it's not reasonable for you to call out a specific religion, regardless of what it believes. And so what do you think of an objection like that?
Because we have, within that confined Islamic community, and we've had documentaries go down and speak to Muslims in Luton who said, I've never met a non-Muslim. I've never met one. Yeah? They've grown up in Luton. They've never met a non-Muslim. So they're going to go through inward looking. And within that community, it's a problem anyway for integration and assimilation, but within that community, and again, I bring on our last episode, I spoke about Al-Mujahideen. Al-Mujahideen are now a prescribed terrorist organisation, but they never were. And I try to explain it to members of the Muslim community like this. You've got a close-knit Islamic community. And within that close-knit Islamic community, there's a bunch of activists who are active every day, 25 days, 7 days a week. This group are active. And they're teaching all the non-Muslims that they're teaching supremacy and violence against non-Muslims. Because within that community, that's what's happening. Al-Mujahideen, 60% of terrorists, UK Muslims on terrorism charges or in jail for terrorism are ex-members of the group. Now, within that community, if you change it to the white community of Luton, and you have the non-Muslim community, and within there you have 1,000 Nazis who have pace tables set up and are continually promoting Nazism, sooner or later, the violence is going to come out of that community. Well, that's what we've experienced. We've experienced something we never even understood. We had to learn about jihad before anyone knew what jihad was, because it was being taught. Jihad was being taught as part and parcel of the Islamic community within my town. So all of these problems, and that's not just that, there's so many problems that come from the community. The hostile.
And of course, true jihad, here. That's what real Muslims know. The real jihad is the holy war against your debasement and your spirit loss, you know.
Hostile view, the mainstream hostile view against women, especially non-Muslim women. Well, those non-Muslim women are my daughter, they're my mum, and they're walking through the streets of Luton. And you've got a community that's promoting a negative view of women, especially our women. And when you look through the statistics, which I gave in our last interview, where Muslim men make up 2.5...
And then you fucking rape their kids, groom their young ladies to become fucking jihadi brides and fucking prostitutes, fucking Allah's prostitutes, you know. Disgusting.
0.5% of the British population, they're responsible for 90% of the convictions of group of...
I mean, it shocked me when he showed footage in these towns. And right next to the mosques, the masjid, to the fucking Musa fucking spot, it's like they've got brothels. Seriously? Like, maybe, yeah, fuck, maybe they shouldn't be blowing up the mosques, they should be blowing up the fucking mosque brothels. Get the sex slaves out of there first, of course.
Groups of men that rape kids. Why? Why is it 90%? And again, if we start looking at Islamic doctrine, and we look at the Quran, and we look at scripture, we might understand why. But unfortunately, as soon as you try and have that discussion, you're far right, you're racist, or you're extremist. And the people that are calling you that have no knowledge of Islam. They don't know anything what they're talking about. They don't know Muhammad's teachings. And you're not even allowed to talk about Muhammad's teachings.
America's healthcare system is lacking in any real care. Insurance companies regularly...
This for a moment, and so I'm going to introduce her with a couple of different questions. I mean, there are many forces within the Muslim world that are trying to establish something approximating a détente and a peace with the Western world. That's exemplified most particularly with the Abraham Accords. And the Abraham Accords have stayed intact despite what's happened after October 7th and all the activism on the side of Iran, for example, doing everything it possibly can to destabilize the Western universities and to bring out the demise of the peace process that was established under the Trump administration. And so there are positive forces operating within the Muslim community that are trying to bring something approximating peace. And so it's dangerous to segregate Islam as such. You could make this case, it's dangerous to segregate Islam as such because if we can't continue to communicate with the moderates, then the more fundamentalist types that are likely misusing.
See, the moderates are just extremists in disguise, hiding in plain sight. You can't trust a fucking Shia. You cannot fucking trust a Shia. Shiites! You cannot trust a fucking Shia.
What might be a core religious doctrine to push their fundamentalism and their essentially their race hatred and their sadism. And so it's very difficult to walk through that and separate the wheat from the chaff. Tammy, what I wanted to ask you is, like, you insisted before we did that first interview that you trusted Tanya Robinson. And I asked you why, and I want you to reiterate that. And I also want you to tell me if that's still true. And I want to see if you have some questions that you'd also like to levy at him. You've watched what's happened in the last month since we did our interview. And so maybe you could reiterate for people why you thought we should do this interview and what drew you to want to talk to Robinson to begin with, and well, what your conclusions have been given what we've gone through in the last month.
Well, first of all, I'd say that I'm for free speech. And I see Tommy as putting a light to issues that nobody else will talk about, and that's important. And he's also outlined his experience personally. That has been his guiding light to, it looks like what has been his guiding light in what he has done. I guess my question would be, why is it that Muslim culture has become so strong? And I know that there's lots of people there, but what happened to the Christian What happened to the Christian word and
the instability in this area? What the hell? What the hell? Heavens to Betsy. Imagine if we had an open dialogue about real issues. Imagine how my YouTube connection would go. I mean, the whole thing is, yeah, it's like, man, how do I get this back on the right track? Maybe I'm being persecuted for eating meat. Okay. Oh no, I've been there.